God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Ashley, can I have roll call, please?
Fisher.
Here.
Briggs.
Here.
Cavalier.
Here.
Kressel.
Here.
Clot.
Here.
Menard.
Here.
Hibna. Here. Jurdy. Okay, it's time for a Crookston forum. If anyone would like to come to the address, issue the council on any issue not on tonight's agenda, may come to the podium, state your first, last name and address, please. Hearing none from council chambers, anybody on the phone bridge, Chad?
No one this evening, Your Honor. I will close the bridge.
Yo.
Agent logged on.
Okay, we have one proclamation tonight, and we also have two presentations. So we'll start with a proclamation.
Okay.
City of Crookston mayoral proclamation to declare February 7th, 2024 Winter Walk to School Day. Whereas children's lives are safer when communities prioritize pedestrian and bicycle safety. And whereas the lack of physical activity plays a leading role in the health problems among children, and being able to walk or bike to school offers an opportunity to build physical activity into their daily routines. And whereas increasing the number of children's safety, walking and biking to school can reduce traffic congestion, improve air quality, and reduce asthma attacks. And whereas safe routes to school interventions have been shown to reduce the rate of pedestrian injuries by 44%. And whereas busing shortages have schools reimagining their transportation plans, and not every parent or caregiver can afford to drive their students to school. And whereas transportation is the second highest household expense in the United States, and safe routes to school programs may help encourage more parents and children to consider walking or biking to school instead of using a bus or car. And whereas active kids learn better, closing learning gaps exacerbated during the COVID-19 pandemic is a priority for schools. And safe routes to school programs helps students better focus in the classroom. And whereas study has shown that after 20 minutes of physical activity, students test better in reading, spelling, and math, and more likely to read above their grade level. And whereas more than 500 schools across Minnesota have been awarded funding through MnDOT planning, infrastructure, or non-infrastructure grants. And whereas walk and bike to school days are special events to make walking and biking more visible, fun, and rewarding for children, encouraging parents and students to make walking and biking to school a habit, and allow decision makers to witness the value of walkable and bikeable communities. Now therefore, I, Mayor Dale Steinbrook, and the Crookston City Council do hereby proclaim February 7th, 2024 as Winter Walk to School Day. In testimony whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of the City of Crookston, Minnesota, do hereby proclaim February 7, 2024 as Winter Walk to School Days. Amanda, come on up. Hopefully, February 7th will be a balmy day like today, huh?
Yeah, thanks, right?
There you go.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you. Amanda with Polk County Public Health. Just to reiterate, Winter Walk to School Day is celebrated all around the state throughout Minnesota. And so it's just an thank you to Crookston. We're working with Highland and Safe Kids of Grand Forks to host an event at Highland School. Just really getting kids outside, connected to their neighborhoods, connected to other people. We know kids that are active learn better. And so from our work at Public Health and just working in chronic disease prevention, this is a really good way to get people outside, bundle up, get your hat and mittens, and feel free, any of you, to join us on February 7th, early in the morning. So thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. Okay, we have a presentation regarding the rapid assessment of the City of Crookston Finance Department. Bill, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bill Conboy. I work for Clifton Larson Allen. We were contracted by the city to perform what's called a rapid assessment of the finance department. Rapid assessment is essentially coming into the organization and identifying, excuse me.
Time to wake up and time they call.
Come in and assess the finance department from the standpoint of structure, who is doing what and what their skill sets are, the processes that people use to get their work done, and the technology or the systems that they use to help in that whole process. We assess the finance department and we interview the key people in the department, but we also talk to and interview a lot of people in other departments, other operating departments of whatever organization we're doing an assessment for, that interact with the finance department. Do they get data from them? Do they get reports from them? Do they rely on them to help them get their job done? We want to get their feedback as to how that interaction with the finance department goes. So we come in, interview a whole bunch of people, ask a lot of questions about what they do, how they do it, and we make observations. And based on those observations, we make recommendations. We look at 3 areas: structure, as I said, who's doing what, their skill sets, the processes that they use to get their job done, and the systems that they use. So the city of Crookston asked us to come in and do an assessment for the city. So we did that. We came in, why don't you go to the next one, Chad. That's just a listing of all the people that we interviewed while we were here. So go 2 more pages in. When we do this assessment, we put together a report that lays out all of our key findings. The summary lays out our the processes that we looked at, the structure, the recommendations that we are making based on the observations we had, and then we put together a roadmap of what we think are the key items that need to be addressed and some kind of a timeline as to how they should be addressed or when they should be addressed. This page is what our key findings are, so I want to summarize those for you, and then we can get further into the report in as much detail as you want to get into. I will open it up to questions. The first one on the list is a need for more capacity in the finance department. Right now it's Audrey and the accounts payable clerk. That is way understaffed based on best practices for a city the size of Crookston. You're probably looking at the need for 3 to 5 people in the finance department. Adding a senior accountant would put you at 3. I wouldn't recommend going to 4 or 5 until you absorb that senior accountant position to evaluate what your ongoing long-term needs are. If you've got needs over and above that, you can certainly fill those with an outsourced person, whether it's from us or any other provider of outsourced services that can fill in those gaps until you can do an evaluation as to what your long-term needs are. The processes that we think are key. Right now, with Audrey being the only one in the finance department, there's not been a monthly close of your books since the year before last, not any in 2023. Best practices require that you do a close at least quarterly. You could do them monthly if you want, but at least quarterly. The payroll benefit management, we think should be moved to the finance department. There are companies that have payroll within the HR department, but that's usually because they don't have anybody in finance that can do it. Payroll is becoming more and more complicated, complex. It takes a lot of time and effort for someone to keep up with all of the rules and regulations and laws, and with the city of Crookston being unionized, that only makes it more complicated. So we think it should be moved out of HR. HR with only one person in there is understaffed when they're asked to do payroll, in addition to all of their HR other functions. So we recommend that you move the payroll into the finance department. And the next recommendation related to payroll is we think it should be outsourced. Again, for the reasons I mentioned, it's complex, it's time-consuming, it's hard to keep up with, to have someone dedicated to payroll, and your payroll is complex and takes a lot of time. So it's costly, and if it's cost-effective to outsource it, we recommend that you do that, or at least explore it. We think it can be done more cost-effectively outside of the organization. But that's something I think we feel strongly that you should at least entertain. Evaluate all processes. You've got a lot of processes that have been developed over time and generally developed outside of input from the finance department. So the finance department had no say in the processes that were developed. They're a lot of manual processes, spreadsheet-driven, time-consuming, inefficient, that need to be re-looked at. And when you're looking at putting in a new ERP system or upgrading your current system, that's the perfect time to start looking at these processes. And once you get more folks in the finance department, you'll be in a better position to start doing that evaluation. The last major finding is the grant management. Right now, there's nothing being done in terms of grants. And you're leaving yourself open to not getting the grants reported correctly on time. You're risking losing them. So to have someone dedicated to managing your whole risk or your whole grant management process is something we find to be extremely key at this point.
So question on that.
Yes.
Grant management, would that fall under a senior accountant?
They could
Or-
certainly do that, yes. Under the direction of the finance director. But the senior accountant that's experienced in tracking, recording, monitoring grants, yeah.
Are you saying that might be a separate person? in grant management?
No, no.
To the scope of.
Okay.
It would be within the scope of the finance department, and it would certainly be within in the capability of a senior accountant. Now, depending on what other responsibilities and requirements are that the department has, it might be that you do need someone else, that you start pushing tasks down to less experienced people. But a senior accountant would certainly be capable of doing grant management under the direction of the finance director.
So I'm just looking, at the recommendations and results here. If you had a senior accountant, would her plate be pretty full and even adding the grant management, or?
If you were to ask me what I think the long-term needs are, I would say, yeah, it could be done with a senior accountant.
Okay.
But I think at some point in time, in the probably not too distant future, you're gonna need another accountant.
Okay.
I think you'll need the finance director, a senior accountant, another accountant, and your accounts payable clerk.
Okay,
And at that point, then you shouldn't have any trouble maintaining grant management within the finance department, which is where it should be anyway.
okay, thank you.
Yep. So has everybody had a chance to look through the report? Does anybody have any questions about any of the content in there?
So I know we posted for an accountant or finance, is that what this position with the senior?
Excuse me,
So I know we
Yeah.
posted for an
yes.
accountant.
Oh, yes,
Is that what this would be?
yes.
Is that, okay.
And we
And is
bu-
it currently noted as a senior accountant with these job responsibilities?
I believe that it is, yes.
Currently, right now, the job description is listed only as an accountant. It was not specified to be a senior accountant. It does require a 4-year degree with 4 years of experience, preferably in municipality accounting. I guess in terms of spelling out those exact duties, again, a job description doesn't always do that. But we wanted to preface the job description to be similar to what was already listed for the accountant that we have currently, have been using currently as that job description, with the hopes of, once this position is filled, then we can better redefine the job description with the accountant. And I'm looking at maybe having more of an accounting technician being under that accountant role.
So have we interviewed anybody for the accounting role yet?
That position closes July 31st.
Is
January.
Or, yeah, sorry, January.
I was
Too many months in my head.
Well, I was just wondering, do you fail that search and reassess the job responsibilities based on?
That's what I was just trying to say, that once we have that position filled and have the duties kind of assigned and have a better grasp of what our needs are, we can then go and reevaluate not only the accountant's position, but evaluate what that second accounting position would look like. I don't think it's gonna be an accountant, it's gonna be more an accounting technician.
I get that.
Excuse me, council members, Jurdy and Hibna, could you activate your microphones? Thank
Sorry
you.
about that. I guess my question is, why would you go backwards in that? Why wouldn't you fail the search and then redo the search with a senior accountant in the title, utilizing what has been suggested as the roles and responsibilities?
I'm sorry, what's the confusion?
I think my thing is I don't think it's fair for us to post a job listing with one description, and then they come on, and then we reevaluate and say, actually, your duties are this.
No, so currently, right now, the job description doesn't specify that you would be grant managing, it's more grant tracking, which I think is different. You know, they're not the ones that are, right now, the job description isn't listing that they would be the ones doing the grant reporting, which I think is more of management. This is more of the tracking, finding expenses that we would be eligible to actually request for reimbursement is kind of more of what I'm seeing the accountant filling right now. And that's what the job description is
Yeah,
stating.
I get that, but it sounds like from the individuals that have provided us some strong direction here, based on what they've already observed, it would seem to me that you would fail the search, readdress that roles and responsibilities in the job search, make it a senior accountant, and add these responsibilities, instead of trying to hire somebody at an accountant's pay, and then reassess what they would and wouldn't do.
Right, I think,
Am I,
I think we get, I'm hearing what both you guys are saying, and I'm agreeing that why don't we just now hire a senior accountant with responsibilities listed here? I mean, that would make the most sense to me.
Well, and excuse me, Audrey, the responsibilities you see there are generalized responsibilities for that level of a position.
right?
They aren't necessarily the exact ones that you would assign to someone that you brought on.
Right.
Because that's gonna depend on their skill set, their experience, their qualifications.
Yeah, and I understand, but I think it's almost like we're underselling the job initially, then we get the person here and then say, oh, by the way, you
Yeah.
know, you're gonna do this.
I agree.
guess-
I think like my feeling is if you're saying that like these are things and it might not be specific and we might need other things, it might be better to your point, end this search, create a position that meets all of these needs, repost it, because when you're saying their skill level set, why would we hire somebody that does not have that skill level set when we say we need them to have that?
Especially since it's suggesting in the reporting here that you don't have an additional person. You have the senior accountant, see how that goes, see how that plays out with the bandwidth of those individuals, with the consideration of then having somebody outsourced for those like more menial tasks versus you hiring somebody that doesn't have the skill set and then hiring somebody else who has even less skill set than that when it clearly is a need.
And I guess I would really like to state that we also need to consider that the finance director job description really isn't up to par either. I feel as director that the grant management should be under my role, whereas the grant tracking that we're talking, or that is in my head, would be more underneath my senior accountant or my accountant.
So I guess my recommendation would be then take a step back and reevaluate your position, what you do, and then what you need before we're posting, trying to find somebody, and then trying to fit. Just because I feel like the onboarding is gonna be hard, and then keeping somebody on is less likely because they're not getting what they were promised in that job description.
And I will say, just in like high-functioning organizations, just across the board, clearly defined roles and responsibilities is so key to having a good structure and a good working environment. So if it sounds like, Audrey, we need to reevaluate your job description and your roles and responsibilities first, for us then to decide on what is it that we need for that accounting position, whether that's a senior accountant or a lesser accounting position. But it seems very backwards to hire somebody in this position.
The whole thing does. I mean, I need bodies here. I have so much work that needs to get done. And there's not really a lot of time to do it in order to get a audit in your hand by June 30th. So,
and it sounds like you need more help. And
Yes.
it sounds like that's something we also can outsource in the meantime while we're kind of looking through this to have a better idea. But I would like to do it right the first time.
no, and I get that. I appreciate that. So is your direction to pull the job posting and we're starting fresh?
I would say if we spent this much time and money on having somebody evaluate what is best practices for our city, I think yes. Why wouldn't we? Why would we get this information in this report if we're not going to utilize it?
So the other thing is we want this fixed to be
Long-term.
Once you're gone as well. So your strengths may be different than the next finance director that we have, and we just want to.
We hope
we
you're
want
here forever.
True.
We want to support you, Audrey, is what we're trying to say here, in the best way we can.
Yeah.
Okay?
For sure. And that's what we're at, because I think this finance part of our city has been neglected for so long. So this is our time to get it right. So I think we need to start with you and maybe your job description and get that fixed and start working our way down because, and I agree with what these guys are saying. I think we need the person that you hire to be it needs to be a strong person and go in with her eyes wide open, understanding what their tasks are gonna be.
Well, and I think also too, like, once your roles and responsibilities have been reevaluated, then also finding whatever that fit in that senior accountant would be, right? If there's areas that maybe you're not as strong in, maybe those are things that senior accountant would then bring. But I think it's really important for us to do that part first. I am just very hesitant to just hire somebody to hire somebody. If we need to have somebody.
Our initial.
I understand that. I understand that. But what you also were telling me is that you're so overwhelmed with the amount of work that you have trying to get done for your audit. It sounds like we need to be able to outsource some of that right now. So then we can actually make a more educated, informed decision here and then go forward. So if you need additional, like, outsourced help for now, we're happy to help out with that. And then once we've actually like had some time to really evaluate what your job responsibilities are, and then also we can then post this next position. But from what I'm understanding so far from what's been shared is that the senior accountant would have these certain responsibilities and that we would hold off from hiring an additional person and outsourcing those additional responsibilities until you're able to really understand what your true bandwidth is because you're caught up and you're in the right place.
Okay, I guess I would like to further review the job description with Bill and Corky to see if that job description is really that off. Because, you know, I guess I would like to just keep it out there if at all possible with how it is written, if we can still work with that, just so that we can continue with the process. Because, you know, I don't want to further leg out having.
I
don't think that there should be a rush.
No, and I'm not saying
Let's
that.
not confuse an ad for, and I will say a senior accountant, because I think you need somebody with 3 to 4 years' experience. And that level of experience, you're talking about a senior position. But let's not confuse the ad for that person with their job description. They're not gonna be the same. You can't fit a job description into an ad, nor would I recommend that you try and do that.
Right.
These are the general things you're looking for, and we want to get as many people applying that fit some of those requirements in terms of background, education, experience. And then we can evaluate whether or not we think they will fit. And then you figure out, all right, here's the job description, here are the things we want to have you do. You know, are they capable of doing it?
I guess,
I think if we look at pages 9, 10, and 11, that gives a pretty good outline of what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And I don't think we have to sit down here and plan that as a council. That's for the people that are going to work in those positions.
I guess myself, I'd just like to see Audrey continue with the ad that's
Yeah.
posted.
Let her do her job.
There may be a diamond in the rough. I mean, you could have 4 or 5 interviews with someone, and if it's not the person you like, then you move forward.
Well, and the position summary does state that the level of work is advanced level work in city finance. So I think, you know, if we continue the process that we currently have, we can emphasize that level, that advanced level of responsibility.
Because you are asking for 4+ years on this. I just want to make sure, I guess, I apologize that you feel like you have not had a correct job description and that you are just, I mean, you have just been running. Like, you just picked it up and just ran in, like, the hardest time. And, like, thank you for everything that you've done. I just want to support and make sure that you're getting the correct support and we're not just trying to do something to fill that need when in the long run that hurts. And I just want to make sure that, like, you're getting the support and the correct support that you need.
I guess the other part that I would be concerned about if this is a senior level position and you don't have the title with it is that gonna hinder those who would maybe have applied for the position because of the title. And I think that's significant, and especially because we already have an issue with, you know, competitive comp wedges in this area for any job, that those little things really do make a difference a lot of times in having those titles and things of that nature. So that would be why I would have suggested to fill it, make it more clearly defined based now on the information that you have from the study that we've done, that it's now a more educated decision and not something that we're just reposting something that we've had in the past and not really looking at what the job
Well, it
responsibilities
wasn't
really are.
reposting. We actually did sit down and, you know, revamp that job
We
description.
Based on
sat down
this?
with Bill and revamped the
Based
job
on this?
description. Yes.
So based
We
on
didn't
this
put-
information
Based on what we received here,
is what you put in the job ad?
yes, lacking senior accountant, but many of the job,
And lacking grant management. I mean, it wasn't, you know, verbatim with
And if you feel
the
grant management
recommendations.
is better under you, I mean, it's your department, right? Like, so
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say like, he said this, so we have to do it. I just wanna make sure that like,
So
No.
like, then can I ask why you guys chose not to make it a senior accountant as part of the job title?
well, go ahead, Audrey.
I guess I'm not one to be on titles. You know, the job,
I get
the job description is the job description, whether you title it a senior accountant or accountant. I mean, it's the duties that the applicant is gonna be reading, I think. It's not necessarily a,
And we did it for,
Title.
I think, two reasons. One, to get as broad of an applicant pool as we could. And secondly, during the interview process, we're gonna ferret out what the person's specific backgrounds are. And like Audrey said, we didn't link it to a specific predetermined senior accountant. That's what we did.
I think,
And I would say at this point, leave it the way it is. I probably would have labeled it senior accountant because that's what you're actually looking for. And I think there's some merit to
The title?
the title and making it sound like it fits with 3 to 4 or 5 years' experience, because that's probably the kind of person, that's probably the title of the person that you're looking for. They've already got that title.
Yeah.
So to come in as an accountant, they might perceive that as a step.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
wonder if we miss
So-
an opportunity of getting some higher qualified
Yeah.
folks by not listing it as a senior accountant.
So I would say that's an easy fix to go change the posting and call it a senior accountant.
But the job duties described
Yeah,
are exactly as
I
we've
wouldn't,
discussed.
I wouldn't touch anything else, just call it a senior accountant and see what kind of response you get.
I mean, I get it. I'm not a titles person either, like, is what, you just do your job, but I do know when people are looking for jobs,
Yeah, yeah.
the title,
We can certainly make
They're
that
looking for
correction.
comparatives.
Just a
What
point of
currently they're doing.
clarification, the present job advertisement was posted on January 17th and runs through January 31st.
And is that something where we can edit that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, why not?
okay.
The other thing I'm understanding is that you are indicating a consensus to get additional temporary staff. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. If that's what you're recommending, Audrey, I would like you to be fully supported and for us to get to a,
and we've had some conversation with Clifton Larson as to how their staff can step in and assist us during this transition, so.
I guess the other part that I think would be beneficial to us initially when, you know, you finally get to that place that you want to say is stasis, is that we know what that is. That we know that you finally have caught up and that things are good to go. So we can have a better understanding of how things go forward, if we're going to get those reports monthly or quarterly or whatever suggested. But it would be really nice to have a good understanding of when we get there, so we can understand that we are now in a better place and are going forward.
Okay.
And right now, the plan is, we've had conversations not only with getting caught up with the ongoing accounting work, but you've got the issue of this year's audit coming up in a few months. And preparations for that have to get started. So Audrey is working with one of our people out of Minneapolis to help with organizing that work to get the audit prep done so that the auditors can come in on time, get the report done by the end of June. And in the meantime, we're also working on starting the year on a regular basis with monthly closes, bank reconciliations, everything that should be done, that is supposed to be done on a regular basis going forward.
So is there a thought, I know we're talking about doing some outsourcing, but is there a thought of maybe somebody less than a senior accountant to come in and initially as a hire to help before we, I mean, maybe somebody that's just starting in the accounting world and, I mean.
Like an accounts receivable almost?
Yeah.
Well, they already have. Only have.
So I don't know, I mean, it sounds like you're gonna need after the outsourcing is done, or if we wanna do that forever, it sounds like you're probably gonna need more than just a senior accountant. Is that fair, or?
That is fair, and I think we need to have the senior accountant here acclimated and then determine what our needs are before we go out for that second role.
Okay.
Well, and I
All
think
right.
similar to like what he's already reported on is to have that person in place and then to see what bandwidth looks like and what's being outsourced to see if that's necessary long-term or if that's just something that needs to happen periodically.
I think that position would be working closely with Audrey in support of not only the finance department, but her needs. And the collaboration between those two will go a long way towards determining what your future needs are beyond that.
So is outsourcing gonna get us enough manpower to get done what you need to get done?
I think with Clifton Larson being able to step in and help us, catch up with 23 activity and get us to our audit preparation papers, I think that between them and getting the senior accountant position filled, I think we will be in a good position to start actually seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and working towards having us be more routinely functioning.
And Audrey, can I just ask, so would that senior accountant also be in charge of payroll then going forward?
No, it has been recommended that payroll is
Outsourced.
to be outsourced, and that's how we are currently working or looking at payroll, is actually outsourcing payroll and outsourcing benefits.
Will
So
we
by-
need an electronic?
Yeah. So by outsourcing it, would it become electronic and we actually
Well,
step
I
into
don't
the
think it's in
21st
the way that
century?
you're
and-
thinking, Delane. You're thinking a platform like a SaaS. I think this would be a company that would utilize something in order to do that. Does that make sense?
It would be electronic from the standpoint you've had electronic timekeeping. Definitely has to be part of the outsourcing to get rid of the manual process that's going on right now, which is very time consuming and error prone. But it would be,
Would it be like an
it would be
ADP or like a
through an
Rootline?
ADP, a payroll processing
Yeah.
provider
Yeah.
is who it would be through.
And so the debate would be how much that would cost versus how much implementing our own payroll system. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Correct.
Well, and I think also part of the reason of us not, and I could be wrong, Chad, but one of the reasons is you didn't feel from an IT standpoint you had the bandwidth this year to implement a payroll system along with everything else.
That's correct, but as Bill stated, the perfect time to look at outsourcing payroll would be as we are evaluating processes and looking at the replacement or upgraded ERP system, which is within the bandwidth in this year's
So at some
budget.
point in time, will we have like numbers versus doing our own, upgrading our own payroll versus outsourcing? Will there be hard numbers to look at between the two?
Yes, so we actually have our first meeting to go over outsourced payroll with one of the few clients that we're looking at tomorrow. So we're hoping that we will be able to share some of our information that we've learned with you sooner than later.
Is there cities, I'm assuming there are, that outsource payroll?
Yes, there are.
And then maybe Audrey can contact them and find out how it's going, or do you think they like outsourcing payroll versus people doing it in-house?
I
Better?
think once they get it outsourced and work through all of the initial bugs and getting it all set up, the answer is definitely yes to that question.
Okay,
And based on the preliminary numbers we've seen so far, it is going to be less expensive to outsource it.
Well,
can
and
almost guarantee it.
Yeah, and just to say, like, understand the differentiation between outsourcing payroll and then having a timekeeping software. You would still have to have somebody on the back end doing all the processing. So that software would really only collect the data, and you would still have somebody at the city that would
But it
still
would
have
have
to
to be-
process it.
I would assume it would have to be compatible with the company that we're doing the outsourcing,
Well,
right?
generally, the company, so there's two different things here. You have a company that has their own software generally, like Rippling or ADP, where that information is
Yep.
already taken in, and then they process everything and cut checks. And then you also have like a time clock type thing that's electronic that we would just be keeping track of. But still, the back end of that with like all the different unions and all the different, like how they accrue time and all those things, that's still something that would have to be processed in-house. So it's, one is like an all-encompassing thing, and one is just a software to collect
So we have to
initial
do both.
data.
Well, it depends on the system and the vendor that you're going through.
Yeah.
Some are gonna have their own electronic timekeeping systems. Whether they can perform all the functions that are needed by the city is another question.
Right.
If they can't, then you have to go look at another third-party provider for a timekeeping system. And part of that evaluation is, do they integrate with the payroll processing company? They have to integrate. If it's a manual process, you really haven't gained much of anything. So best case scenario is the vendor you select can do it all. That not being the case, then you gotta go find a timekeeping vendor, and I know Chad has been involved in doing that and has got companies that he knows that provide that service. Then do they integrate? Hopefully they do. If they don't, then you're gonna have to evaluate whether or not you use them or you look for somebody else.
Well, and I guess that would be part of the pricing too, is it's cheaper to do an all-encompassing versus to the integrate. So, yeah, it'd be nice to know that pricing as well.
Okay. Any other key findings, Bill, that we should be aware of? In your,
No, I think that sheet right there that's up on the screen right now pretty much summarizes the important ones.
okay,
I guess I do want to suggest, and it's in there, what page is it on? Let me find it for you. So on page 15, number 1, the cheetah and hanger rent. Right now, that is totally manual. And it is prone to error, and you've found some issues.
Yeah, Ashley has been the one stepping in to help fill in our rent processes, and yes, there's
Yeah,
lots of.
you've got enough tenants that whole process should be automated. And the cost to add a basic property management software to make that not a manual process, to introduce technology to the whole process will be well worth it.
That seems to be a common theme throughout this whole report as I was going through it, that we have a lot of manual processes on
Yes.
spreadsheets and things like that, which
Yeah.
I've been an advocate for getting technology
Automating.
introduced into this business, which is our city government, and it just seems to be, something we need to get done.
Yes, today, best practices, if you want to talk about best practices, they're all technology driven.
Yep.
And we are in fact meeting with Lowell Miller this week, Audrey and I, about the hangars and how we implement a better process.
And if I may, the airport was brought online with the city fiber system last month. So we have a capability to extend present or future ERP system and that kind of type of programmatic automation that we're talking about here.
It's a slower process when we want, but we are taking those steps.
Do you have any suggestions for what we should upgrade our ERP system to?
No, I do not. I know you're looking at the latest version of Encode, which I think has hopefully some improvements made to it based on the feedback I've got. There's a lot of people that aren't real crazy about Encode, particularly as it relates to payroll. So I think as they evaluate Encode and if they go through the process of looking at a couple others, so they've got some comparisons to make to see what might best fit the city. That's would be ideal. And then the whole process issue kind of falls in line with that.
And we have started to engage with Chad on that, evaluating systems, getting potentialities, and we've been doing that for, what, couple months, Chad?
And so currently, are we
Correct.
utilizing an older version of Encode?
Yes.
Yes,
My
we are.
understanding?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
That's good. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Excellent, excellent report.
Okay, we have one more presentation, and this is regarding the Minnesota Rail Service Improvement at the Industrial Park. And we have Chet from Deed here. Is that correct?
Any glasses? Yeah, oh, I'm just getting back in. Happy holidays, everybody. Haven't
Welcome
seen you
back.
for a while, so yeah. I'm just starting to get back in a couple hours a day this week. And so we're talking about the industrial park. We're talking about the Mercy grant. You can go to the next slide there, Chad. We've been doing a lot of work out of the industrial park, and the state of Minnesota and the federal government have been investing. They put a lot of money into our industrial park over the last few years. USDA has put $4.4 million into the North Star Lime recently that was awarded. That should be coming through. Rural development investment to expand the market for spent lime to use improvements for land productivity, and that's taking the lime from Crystal Sugar. We probably heard that presentation earlier this year. Deed in their IBDPI, their Innovative Business Development Public Infrastructure Program, they granted $482,000 to the city of Crookston, and that was to put the road in by the AIC campus. That was to subsidize a $895,000 grant from the Minnesota legislature, which came from a general obligation bond in 2020. And then more recently, the Ag Innovation Camp, well, not more recently, previously now, the Ag Innovation got $6.75 million, which would put up that building. So they've been putting a lot of money into our industrial park, and so we're continuing to improve the industrial park, and we're continuing to work on improving the region around the industrial park. And so we'll go on to the next slide, and we'll kind of talk about what's coming up right now and what we wanted to talk to council about tonight. I'm going to turn this one over to you.
Sounds good. Good evening, council members. Chet Bodine, I'm with the state of Minnesota, Department of Employment and Economic Development. So we worked with Minnesota Northern Rail to submit an application known as the Minnesota Rail Service Improvement Grant to extend a rail spur to the industrial park, which would require a switch coming in from the south off Minnesota Northern's rail line. This would be the first step in installing a rail yard on the southeast side of that industrial park space. But we can't get there until we get this spur in to start. So we have some information up on the slide here, talks about just this application, some of the benefits. Certainly, we're trying to attract a lot of investment to the area. A rail spur and a transload site would be very helpful in that regard. My team at the state of Minnesota our job is to meet with site selectors, businesses throughout Minnesota and the country, and try to get them to do an expansion or a location here in Minnesota. And with the cost of fuel, workforce shortages around trucking, rail certainly stands out as a cost-saving measure for large development projects, especially those that are bringing in lots of inputs for agricultural production, et cetera. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide.
Can you hold 1 second?
Sure.
So Briefly on the railroad, so it's 4 truckloads, semi-truckloads can go into one rail car. So it really cuts that down. And the other thing to talk about is we're trying to get our product from Minnesota over to the Duluth Harbor. If you want to talk a little bit about that and the initiative that's happening with DEED and that.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a DEED initiative, but we have, our trade office has met with several representatives from Western European markets talking about how do we get more egg shipments through the Great Lakes. So Duluth has reopened its agricultural port at the Duluth port, and having a transload site in Crookston would allow more ag producers in our region to get product to market, which they haven't before. So,
Does that also provide like higher profit for those farmers then if they're able to have a wider market?
certainly opens them up to different markets and uses. Certainly, in the past there was a transload site, I think I want to say the Hawley area that closed about 10-12 years ago, and so now a lot of shipments actually go to St. Paul and then get out of BNSF and run west, right? Sometimes through Moorhead. Now that would be different than the port, obviously, but just having a transload site here in Crookston ultimately would save a lot of inefficiency there.
So as we're talking about increasing our tax base, this is one of the ways that we can help our farmers. The farmers talk to me a lot because Crookston is their home too. They go to school here, they go to the hospitals here, they drive on our roads. And so they're expanding in town. We have a lot of farmers who are doing business in town, and they've asked for this because they want to be able to bring their crops into Crookston, get them out of here. It's going to be higher. You know, their tax rates are going up for the schools, the same as our cities are. So as we went through our truth and taxation hearing this year, it was a hard time. So we're looking at ways we can work as a partnering with DEED and different entities to increase our tax base so that we don't have to raise our taxes next year. So this is one of the things that we feel like will help, and it will help also to support our local agricultural base. And then also, as we look at Ag Innovation Campus, and they're going to be developing spin-off businesses, smaller businesses, because they're incubating small businesses. We're hoping that we can also develop a staging area where they'll be able to stage their stuff at storage houses and then be able to load onto cars to get out of there. So we're trying to get a whole development system into place to use that just to really bring business into Crookston. Right?
Correct.
You go to the next slide, Jen.
So here's our preliminary schematic. I want to draw your attention to the green portion. So that would be phase 1. That's what we've applied for with MRSI. That includes, again, the initial spur and switch, or the switch and the initial spur into the park. The roads that we've put on here in the blue and the purple area, those are subject to change. There's kind of an initial kind of planning thought process about how do we get access to the transload site for trucks and companies that are going to be using it that aren't located in the site. But that could be changed around. We've talked about coming in from Ingersoll, worked with the planning staff, the public utilities to kind of think through what's the best way to either extend that Ag Campus Road south or just get to the transload site. So if you see the green site, that's the initial spur. Surrounding that is what would be phase 2, which would be to build out from that initial spur and make it publicly accessible transload site. So that's the blue part surrounding that green part. So those are the ones that are right first and foremost in our purview, and then figuring out the roads throughout the park that would best provide access to that without constraining us too much on what type of business we'd attract. I think, and leveraging, what existing utilities are there without, the most efficient way. That'll come later.
Can I ask, as far as like public access to rail spurs, like as far as a radius from us, where would be the next place that someone could go to access rail?
For a transload site like this, I mean, there are agriculture, like, elevators, that sometimes locate on rail if you're part of that co-op. But having a public transload site like this, there's nothing like this in northwest Minnesota at this point. So, like I said, a lot of companies actually we'll take product down to St. Paul to put on rail there, which actually comes back up through Moorhead and heads west, so. at
So pretty
times-
significant for our area.
Very significant, yep.
Okay.
Significant cost areas. Yep. Oh, sure. So the other piece for council to consider is we have an anchor user right now, which Carrie mentioned, that's North Star Lime. So they will be doing approximately 75,000 tons of product shipped out of their site with their USDA grant. And they would like to put up storage, if you can, this schematic is tilted here on its side, but so if you look, it would be to the south of the blue proposed road. There's about a 10-acre site there where North Star would like to put up storage, ag storage, so that they can keep production going. And then as rail cars become available, at this point, we'd only have enough funds to give them enough room for 10 rail cars to stage, right? So in the meantime, they're gonna have to store it because production will move faster than that to keep up with their schedule. And so as part of this grant, we'd like council to consider donating that land to North Star.
And could you point out kind of where that is?
Absolutely.
The 10 acres?
Does
The
it say
highlighted?
future tenant, 10 acres, and then it's the phase 1 earthwork and single, is that the track you're talking about?
Actually, no, it's actually to the south of that, so to the left. Yeah.
Future tenant, North Star Line.
Right there, yep.
Where it's highlighted,
Okay.
right?
And is that what you're asking the council as a part of this whole thing, to consider donating?
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
Donating it to North Star Line?
Is there also
Yes, sir.
5 acres for the railroad?
There is, yep. And then the spur itself would be 5 acres. That would be then controlled by Minnesota Northern, which is very important actually to the application we've put in. So I would ask probably in separate, motions for the city to consider, one, donating that land to Minnesota Northern for the rail spur so they can control that. They will need control of that if they're going to take on this grant and
And is
build
that the
out.
blue and the green, or just the green?
That is the blue and the green running outside of the roads.
Yes.
Not including the roads. Yep, yes, sir.
So that would be just off South Front Street,
That's correct.
or it would be abandoned. That's what you're asking, for that road to be abandoned, and it would constitute 5 acres. And then the 10 acres for future tenant North Star Lime, and that would be donated to North Star Lime?
It would be, or, I don't know how that
Just
would,
say it, like to
yeah,
say-
how would you phrase that?
Yeah, it would be more of an in-kind, whereas we're talking about all the money that the government has put in, the state has put in for AIC campus, all the money that the USDA has put into North Star Line. There's been a lot of investment in the industrial park. So it's a good faith effort of saying, hey, the city really appreciates what you're doing. We're asking just for the 15 acres to be donated, 5 to the railroad and 10 to North Star Lime. And then we'll continue into the second phase once that gets put into place, and asking for more grants. We'll also be going after more BDPI grants, which is for more roads, to help get those in, and other things as they come open through the USED Economic Development Authority and different ones as they come up. So we're continuing to work with grants to subsidize what we're doing.
So in the process of writing grants, oftentimes they want to know if the municipality has some skin in the game.
That's exactly what we're asking for.
That is what we're asking for.
Thank you. Yes,
So
correct.
this is that.
This is that. This is our skin in the game, yeah.
Yep.
We're asking for $1.7 million, and we're asking us to donate property as our skin in the game, yeah.
That's the potential match, but the grant's not dependent on that, but it's important
Well, it's going to look good if we do
from the
it.
optical point of view.
Well, and it's showing that the city is also invested in this as well,
Yeah, yep.
But ultimately, the control goes to North Star Line.
for the 10 acres.
For 10 acres and
Yes.
5 to the railroad for the
Yes.
other.
Yes.
Correct.
Just so everybody understands that.
Yeah, I
It's not going to
appreciate
the
that.
state, it's not going it will ultimately end up in those two parties'
Yes.
hands.
Carrie,
They
is,
will be paying taxes.
No, I'm just.
Oh, yeah, the tax base is going to increase. This is the whole point for wanting to make sure that we talked in a public meeting, right? Is that there's a lot, after that truth and taxation meeting, I think the public, I really want them to know how much the council has been working and how much my EDA department has been working to get our tax base increased to help to offset some of this stuff, because it's been a rough one.
so can I also just clarify too, with the 10 acres, is the idea of like storage built on that and not necessarily storage that North Star line would use all of, but also the potentiality of?
The potential is to leave some, and then to be able to develop some public storages down the road, but that'll be a phase 2 down in that area as other business begin to develop and spin off from the AIC campus. If that would be in partnership or not with North Star Line, that would still need to be seen, because if they blow up their business that much faster than that, they run out of room, we'd have to be looking at some more property. So I'm not going to commit them to that, but yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about phase 2?
Sure, yep. Phase 2,
We're used to this.
Yeah. The most, I think, critical part of phase 2 is to build out from that initial spur to create the public transload site. So that would be owned by Minnesota Northern Rail, right? So not any responsibility of the city to own or operate.
So would they maintain that then?
They would, yep. So they would also have, any liability there. The city wouldn't be responsible for anything, but that would provide an enormous benefit, to area businesses who are looking to both bring in stuff and ship stuff out.
I think too, as we're marketing Crookston, we developing the marketing position and stuff, this will be one of our highlights of marketing, to bring business here, to bring people, start to bring their product here, to get loaded up, and then we can start to get more, commerce happening again back in Crookston.
There is a second little square that's in blue. That's not part of this 15 acres, that's something.
Phase
What is that?
2A?
Thanks, Corky. So what we, again, some of the roads, things here in phase 2 are subject to change. But what we thought is, if you're vacating South Front Street, right, to put the rail on, and you want to eliminate traffic to going through that or coming from what would be kind of the northeast side, you could potentially put a cul-de-sac there, and that would keep traffic coming in from that.
So there would be, not a requirement, but a vacation of South Front Street, south of those homes that are there now. That would be your anticipation.
Yes, sir.
And you're not anticipating that we have to do that within 6 weeks, 6 months? That's yet to be determined.
So if the grant is approved, I imagine we'd come back to council with the planning department and discuss the vacation of South Street and what they feel would be the best course of action for closing off access to it from.
Well, and that's why I'm asking, because that would be on our radar. Yep. There are timelines, there are processes, just so we know what our responsibilities may be.
Yeah, absolutely. I should have brought that up at the beginning, knowing that that's something to decide.
We really need to say thank you to the City Hall and to Deed and all the railroad and the Houston Engineering and all the people that have been, Greg has been great. There's been so many moving parts to this, and my board with the Economic Development Authority, there's been so many moving parts that coming to this one map, Kayla, you would know above all people, but we just really want to say thank you for helping get us to this point to bring it before you. So we're pretty proud of what we've done so far, knowing that it is subject to adjustments.
So what they're asking you all to consider is an in-kind donation, 15 acres, or the potential when it's needed to actually make that donation. And it's worth, depending on how you look at it, we've sold property for $6,000 an acre at that site. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, well, it can't be done tonight, but we do a resolution at the appropriate time. If there is that sense among you, we would create a letter saying that at the appropriate time, it would be donated, and we'd make that in the form of a resolution, if that's your sense. Not tonight, because we can't, but it would be on at the appropriate time. Is that fair?
Yeah, just kind of a memorandum of understanding up front. Yeah, it doesn't need to be a resolution, just kind of a memorandum of understanding that that when the time comes, to Corky's words, that we
At
would,
that time when we need to actually do the deed,
Right.
it
That
would
would be
be.
your intent, right?
And then I assume either deed would be or Northern Railroad, Minnesota Northern would give us the memorandum to review of understanding, or would we be drawing that?
I guess I would defer to you, counsel, on how to
Lawyer.
approach that, but yeah,
Well, why
I
don't,
don't know, lawyer Corky.
I imagine that would come from the city, given that.
fair
it's
enough, we
your-
just
yeah.
want to make sure we've got the meat on the bones, if that is the sense.
I'm happy to work with city staff and Minnesota Northern to make sure that the language in there is, yeah, everyone was happy.
But that's why we have it for discussion.
Thank you.
Tonight, it's actually a discussion item later, but,
Well, I had one other point that in my discussions with Minnesota, or I'm sorry, North Star Lime, they've indicated they have $1.5 million in their budget for the storage that they would put on the site. In the application, they wrote a letter committing to a minimum of $1 million worth of storage in the site, all of which is taxable capital improvements in Minnesota. Some agricultural equipment is non-taxable, but grain bids and silos are, so.
Does, at South Front, does Bertle, if we vacate, I'm just curious, does Bertle Gravel use that road to get out to their waste site?
We have had discussions, actually, I haven't, but Jason Beersworth from Minnesota Northern did have discussions with landowners in and around that area that might be affected, and so far we found that there's nothing that we can't overcome.
So they would still be able to access their sites out there some way?
That's my understanding from having heard secondhand from Jason's discussions with them. As we move forward, Mr. Mayor, we'll bring people before you can speak directly to that.
so you've had discussions with Lyle Wilkins, A&E Properties, and Calumet about how this might impact them if the city were to abandon South Front Street.
Yes, sir. So I personally have not.
Right, I understand
Yes.
that, but
Our
someone in your
group has,
department.
yes, Minnesota Northern Director himself
'Cause we-
has.
Yeah, Minnesota Northern is pretty familiar with the property owners there, and Jason's been very forward with making sure that they're engaged, because it's a good neighbor thing, it's Crookston, you know, so that's been a big deal to make sure that we're keeping everybody on the same page with it. So if we in any way miss something, that would never have been anybody's intent, but I think that we could fairly say
Because we
99
can't
point.
deny them an ingress, egress by
Right,
doing that.
right.
But as long as Minnesota Northern is speaking with them and we keep that information, that'd be great.
So there's nobody dependent on South Front.
Perfect.
Bertles uses the east entrance. The only time they use the west is if there's a train.
Okay.
So vacating South Front doesn't tie anybody's hands over there.
All right, thanks, Brandon.
Did I mention your department was involved? So I'm saying every department has had their hands on this presentation with Chuck.
And that's why we
volunteering.
ask those questions,
Yeah.
just so we keep it moving and we're not surprised at the end.
No, I think those are good points. I also just want to mention, I was there at the AIC opening, but I also went to the Northern Crop Institute at NDSU. And the idea of accessing the European markets and the easier ways of doing that was pretty important to them. The farmers that are utilizing that and the grains that they were producing. So just something else to consider about the importance of having another access to rail was brought up significantly when we were there, so.
Yeah, because BNSF runs straight down Highway 2 and hits Duluth. To sort of reopen that from Crookston is a big deal for us, yeah.
So, very good. Based on what we've heard, do you want to direct me and the city attorney to prepare a memorandum of understanding?
Yes, please.
For the
We're gonna make a motion.
potential
Thank
donation
you.
at the appropriate time of 15 acres. And again, we don't have it platted out, so we don't know which it is, but we have the map and we can work on that.
Yeah,
Does
I think the
that-
MOU, and then if we could just, find out, obviously those individuals that are on that road, if there's any other concerns that they might bring to our attention, just so we're
We're
aware.
gonna do that.
So it would be fairly nebulous in terms of we would consider donating 15 acres of land. Is that,
Is that
Yeah.
consensus here?
is that?
Yeah.
Yep.
We can work on drafting that. We'll work with Carrie and with Chet and the railroad to get that done. It might not be tomorrow, but we'll keep pursuing it. Certainly makes good sense, you know?
You bet.
Is there a time that you guys need the MOU by?
I would say by the end of January would be excellent, if possible.
That's fairly quick.
Yeah, but there is no set time. The decision timeline for this grant is April. We should know if we got the grant. But, you know, the sooner we've already submitted the application, so I think this is the only thing that.
But we could give you a letter of support a little more specific than the previous one, and then work on the MOU.
Thank you.
Fair?
Sounds great.
Yeah, is this
sounds good.
first come, first served money?
No, sir, it's competitive. We do have a bigger budget now in this than previous years, thanks to the surplus in Minnesota. But this year is $9 million in it, and I talked to the grant coordinator, who said that they had $18 million worth of projects submitted to compete. But he liked ours, I think. So.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
If I can add one other piece too, just I wanted to say about the finance discussion earlier. I think since I started in this role, we've had 3 different applications come through for the Minnesota Investment Fund. So you have me to thank / blame for some of the chaos in that department. But with this, I think we'll have more partnership with the city on state incentives to bring in business to Crookston. And so I'm happy to see that you're considering building up your department to facilitate that.
Well, I would say this council is pretty pro-business and pretty pro-ag, so we're excited to see the growth in our town.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good, Karen. Nice.
Okay, moving on. This brings us to the agenda. Does anyone wish to add anything to tonight's agenda?
Your Honor, can we add under the regular agenda item 8.07, a resolution calling for a public hearing regarding the property located at 115 East 4th Street, the old bus garage building?
Thank you. So do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved, Your Honor.
Thank you, Delane. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Don. Discussion? Hearing none, can I have roll call, please?
Fisher?
Aye.
Briggs?
Aye.
Cavalier?
Aye.
Kressel?
Aye.
Clot?
Aye.
Menard? Hibna? Jurdy?
Weren't we supposed to approve the consent agenda first?
Consent's next.
Okay,
Yep.
just double checking. Aye.
Okay, motion carries. This brings us to the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to remove anything from the consent agenda?
I'd like to pull the resolution regarding the approving the manufactured house evacuation plan, and then the resolution authorizing a grant contract agreement with the Violent Crime Enforcement Team. Reason being, I would just like to have a little bit more context of those before voting on them.
So you're removing 604
And 605.
and 605. Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve this the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Tim. Is there a second? Second by Don. Roll call, please.
Fisher?
Aye.
Briggs?
Aye.
Cavalier?
Aye.
Kressel?
Aye.
Clot?
Aye.
Menard?
Aye.
Hibma?
Aye.
Jurdy?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Ashley, regular agenda, please.
Alrighty. Yes, Your Honor. Item 8.01 is a resolution accepting the preliminary engineer's report and calling for a public hearing for the 2024 street improvements.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved, Your Honor.
Got Don and looks like
Second.
Tim's raising his hand. Corky, discussion, please.
Yes, what this is, there's a preliminary engineer's report prepared for the items proposed to be improved. Streets in the city, you'll notice the Houston Avenue. You'll recall that's one where the water, sewer, wastewater have already been done. There's one for 2 of the state aid highways or roadways That money comes and it pays for the entire amount, including the proposed sidewalk on North Broadway. There is one for the Industrial Park roadway. That would be to finish it off. And then the last one being on Guthrie. These are, the engineers prepared preliminary reports, preliminary estimates, and if you approve those, then we would send out the proper notices and have public hearing on February 12th regarding each of the proposed roadway adjustments, if you would. And that's when you get each property owner gets their notice, how much their proposed assessment would be. So that's the resolution to accept the proposal, preliminary engineer's report, and then to proceed on with the notices being sent out and having a public hearing on the 12th.
All right, thank you. Rich?
Everything Corky said is accurate. I just wanted to clarify that by passing this resolution tonight doesn't mean these projects are going through for sure.
Right.
You'll have an opportunity when we have the public hearing and you'll hear the public comments to either pull one or all the projects off the list. So just wanted to clarify that. So
Thanks, Rich. Further discussion? Hearing none, can I roll call, please?
Fisher.
Aye.
Briggs.
Aye.
Cavalier.
Aye.
Kressel.
Aye.
Clot.
Aye.
Menard.
Aye.
Hibma.
Aye.
Jurdy.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Item 8.02 is a resolution regarding the United States Environmental Protection Agency Climate Pollution Reduction Grant.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
I'll make that motion, Your Honor.
Thank you, Clayton. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Henry. Discussion. Corky, please.
Yes, what this is the city has been in working with the University of Minnesota Crookston as well as a couple of other entities interested in reducing greenhouse gases and emissions. In fact, there has been an award to the state of Minnesota, as I understand it, and we have been asked or selected as one of very few, if not the only city to be involved in this, potentially up to $22 million for the city of Crookston, essentially into Don's ward, Ward 4, for having inspections, analysis, and then monies available for replacement of windows, replacement of furnaces, replacement of all of those items within homes that would affect greenhouse gas emissions and air pollution. We're asking that the Community Development Director for the City of Crookston be authorized to commit to this project and execute any documents necessary to get us into that consortium. Fair?
Very good, actually. So I put together a few slides on it just to give a little bit more detail. It's pretty exciting. The great news is, as Corky's right, there's I'm like, wait a minute, I made a really pretty one, Chad.
This is for Ward 1, 4, and 5.
That's correct. I was going to say.
That's what Ward 4 is going to look like when it's all done.
With a couple houses. Yeah, we have some really good partners with, like, as Corky said, we have the EDA, my department, of course, the city, and then the Minnesota Regional Sustainable Development Partnership, Clean Energy Resource Teams, and then Fresh Energy is a nonprofit, which is about 30 people who work with grant writing and that type of stuff. We have a really strong team. This opportunity came to us in October, I believe it was, and we only had a few weeks to turn around this huge request for the MPCA, which is coming from the federal government, but Minnesota gets to submit, like, how much of this huge bazillion, which I think I showed you guys, you already have a resolution on it, is billions of dollars. So MPCA put it together. They took all of the applications that came from around the state, and we had actually already started a lot of this in our department. So we actually had some really good things in shape. And go on to the next slide. Number 2, please. So we were chosen, I'll show at the end who it was, but the MPCA has chosen us. It'll be wards 1, 4, and 5. And I want to be really clear that this is not something that we chose as a city. This came from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. I don't want the other wards to think that we weren't paying attention to them, because we are. However, the MPCA felt that these wards, based on income and age of the homes and that type of thing, that this is the wards that they wanted us to focus on. So they looked at this. In these wards, there's approximately a little over 1,000 homes. So at this, if we get awarded, which I believe we're going to do really good in it, 750 homes will be able to do home energy audits. Weatherization for 721 homes will be $2.2 million. Air source heat pumps for 721. They're called mini splits, and they actually are electric, but they'll go to like about 30 below zero. 3.6 million. Electric panel upgrades for 721 homes, 1.5 million. And then electric appliance fund, 4 million. In addition, there'll be an opportunity for a hybrid solar and wind turbine battery system for critical infrastructure, 11 million. That would actually help to, if we have an emergency, it would keep our hospital afloat, it would keep our city emergency things afloat, and it would also enable the city to offset some of our electric bills as some of our own personal buildings, so that, again, trying to get our tax base down where, we're not having to raise taxes all the time. So this has kind of been our focus over my department. Our total request to the MPCA from Crookston is $22,750,000, and the goals are to address the housing crisis. We want to keep all of our older housing stock in really good shape because we can't afford to build any more houses. And then also to button up the pre-existing homes. There's a couple things in there that are going to be, we don't know how much it's going to cost if you get into a pre-existing home and you have to deal with asbestos or lead paint and that type of stuff. We're going to try to get extra funding to deal with the pre-weatherization issues on there as well. And then, so, of course, we're hoping to increase the value of our homes and also then, again, to increase our tax base and to encourage people to come to Crookston. So next slide, Chad. The cities that have been invited to the next meeting, which we'll be doing here at the end of the month, is Duluth, Robbinsdale, St. Paul, Minneapolis, Bloomington, St. Louis Park, the Met Council, and Crookston. So we are the only rural city, aside from Duluth, which is the largest city, that was actually chosen to do this. So we're really excited about the opportunity. It's kind of a once-in-a-lifetime money's coming through. When we first saw it, we thought they were kidding. So we'll see what happens. It doesn't seem to be a joke because everybody's working really hard on it. So we still are doing a lot of meetings on this right now. Any questions?
Is the weatherization as part of that? Will that be like outside exterior stuff?
Yeah, that's going to be your windows, your doors, your siding, your roof, all the things that that need to happen in older homes. And then we also include a pre-weatherization, which sometimes you can get a grants, but then you get in there and they say, well, this house isn't even good enough to fix because it has issues with foundation or blah, blah, blah. So I'm not promising anything, but the pre-weatherization we have also included that we want to get the houses up to speed so then they can actually be buttoned up and get the weatherization done. So it goes beyond. We got some really good counsel from an architect from Boston who had to run into that.
If this goes through, how will the residents, they have to apply? Or do they go through somebody locally, or do they?
We have in our request, we have we have full-time staff to help us to touch base with our residents, help them through, we have to also apply for any of the reimbursements, that you get through if you buy a big air conditioning unit, so much per ton, you get a reimbursement on it from the state. So it'll take some staff, but we did put right staff into that grant. Yeah, so they'll know.
So ideally, they'll come to you guys and you'll help them with the application, is that correct?
Yeah, or we'll go door to door if we have to, because it's a big deal. This is really reaching out to our community and saying that we really want to help you and we want to help you keep your house intact, and we want the next generation to be able to live in it. So
this also seems like it really addresses a lot of the concerns with more of the blighted homes.
Yep.
So it's exciting to see that.
Yeah, we really want to help them get up to snuff and then keep them nice, right? I mean, I think that the pride of place is a big deal. People love living in Crookston. They're proud of Crookston, and they hate when their house goes down, but how do you pay for it, especially now with the cost of things and the interest rates? It's challenging. So this, we'll find out. We'll just keep moving along, and it looks, I would say if we do everything right, 25, 26, and 27 in Crookston between something like this. We've also got a small cities development thing for $1.2 million for the downtown Ward 4 area. You got the redoing of your Highway 2 and the downtown area, the streets and that type of stuff. There's a lot of really good things. We just have to keep it all moving, I think.
So if you remember the language we used that some of you were kind of offended by, blighted areas and slum, that's this, and that's the term they use. And I think it's important to note two things. One, there is the ability for those preconditions, that weatherization, that's open. And there will be reaching out to the community members. It's not just gonna be if they come in physically, there'll be reach out.
Yeah.
I think that's an important piece of it, especially just people with all different abilities. Just being able to assist them with maybe filling out the paperwork that they might not otherwise be able to. And I think it's going to be a big piece of it.
Yep, we agree. We agree. Yep. Don,
Tri-Valley,
I'm sorry.
Tri-Valley at one point did that winterization program. I worked with them for 3 years.
They were really good.
So it's really a big deal as far as these homes, they'll do blower doors
Yeah.
and all that stuff. And I was one that worked for Tri-Valley doing that, so it'll be a great program and it'll help out a lot of people.
We'll have some meetings to get all the logistics ironed out with people who are actually living in the area and in those wards to help us. You'll know who your neighbors are more than somebody from out of town will. So,
And when will we know more about this?
I'll give you guys a schedule at the next meeting. Right now, our next meeting for next steps is coming up here in a couple of weeks. And then MPCA, the Minnesota, these people are working hard and they have no timeline. I mean, the federal government has given them no time at all to get this, so it's pretty intense, keeping it going. Yeah, I'll let you guys know. Don, were you going to say something?
Yeah, Carrie, do you have the numbers of people from downtown that reacted to the flyer that we sent out to them? How many? I think there were about 30 businesses that are interested in getting.
For the Small Cities Development Grant? Yeah, that, for the 1.2 million, there was a really good response to that, Don.
And then from the ward, I think we had about, what, 44, 40?
Yep.
People that are, families that were interested.
Yeah, so we have two separate programs we're talking about. One is this one coming up with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and the other is with the Small Cities Development Grant, which is the 1.2 million. So it's a lot of money either way. Suddenly 1.2 looks small when you talk about 2.2, but it's all great for our residents, so.
Wonderful, thank you so much.
Thanks, Carrie. Further discussion? Hearing none, can I have roll call, please?
Fisher.
Aye.
Briggs.
Aye.
Cavalier.
Aye.
Kressel.
Aye.
Clot.
Aye.
Menard.
Aye.
Hibma.
Aye.
Jurdy.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Item 8.03 is a resolution receiving and approving plans and specifications regarding the pre-constructed modular bathhouse located in the Crookston Central Park Campground.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Tim. Is there a second by Don? Thank you. Discussion. Corky, please.
Yes, what this is as you'll recall, we initially had a campground with a proposed bathhouse. We put out the bids for the entire project some years ago. They came back way too high. So we broke down into component parts, the campground itself and a bathhouse. Campground made it through, we've got the money. The bathhouse was problematic and you voted in a resolution for a redesign and a rebid. And that was done, and those bids came in exceedingly high, $777,700 something, and $599,000. So what we did is we talked with the grant administrator who saw those and said, well, those are way too high, we don't have enough money. So she suggested that we consider pre-constructed bath house with the same specifications, and she gave us the name of this Huff Cut company. We contacted them and asked for their opinion about the estimates of what those might cost, and we received estimates anywhere from less than $150,000 to over $200,000. We looked at the plans and specifications. We contacted the company, and they said, yes, we can meet your specifications, and this is the bid they gave us for that pre-constructed bathhouse that they can deliver to us for installation on the site.
No, that's not a storm shelter type.
There would not be, none of the, after the original bids,
Nothing
then
else.
there, well, the storm shelter was eliminated. This facility here would be the storm shelter.
Thank you.
Further discussion.
So is this a 4-bathroom? Is that my understanding of this?
Excuse me?
It's a 4-bath?
Yes.
And as far as like capacity or usage, is that pretty common for how big the campground
Very
is?
yes, yes, very
I'll
common.
say someone that goes to a lot of campgrounds, this size campground, I would say 4 is larger
Than most,
than
but,
most.
yes,
And they all have their individual access points, correct?
correct.
Further discussion?
Is there any concern with the long-term or long lifespan of this versus something that wasn't built modular?
I'm not aware of anything. When we spoke with these folks at this company, they said, no, it should last as long, if not longer,
Then like,
than a stick-built.
okay.
Further discussion? Hearing none, can I have roll call, please?
Fisher.
Aye.
Briggs.
Aye.
Cavalier.
Aye.
Kressel.
Aye.
Clot.
Aye.
Menard.
Aye.
Hibma.
Aye.
Jurdy.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item 8.
So when will this be? Because it has to be done by a certain time,
Has
right?
to be done by June 30th. We anticipate, or they represented to us, first of all, they have to have a crane come in and place it down. So we don't want to do any work on the roadways. So they hopefully are in here late April, early May. And they will provide the crane and they will provide the operator if that's what we choose. And so they'll get in, get out, and then we'll do the roadways. We're not going to put asphalt down and have these crane drive over it because it wouldn't be appropriate.
So
We should make the deadline.
Yep. We're looking at that third week in May for them to come in and do this project. I have been in contact with our construction company that would be putting the pavement down, and they're looking at coming in that first week of June. So the timeline should work out well for us to get the bathhouse in before the pavement gets down for the final construction of the campground itself.
And all electrical and plumbing and everything will meet that deadline?
Yep. Well, that's what I'm working on now.
Okay.
I do have specs out to local plumbing and electricity companies. We sat down last week, Chuck, myself, Dave Lassard, and some public works employees to talk about the concrete work. So we are trying to find some company to come in and, because you got to build walls. This ain't a slab. This is an actual wall that has to hold 50 to 80 tons is what they recommend. So I'm in the process. I've sent some emails out today, made some phone calls. So that's what I'm working on to get set for May. So
So does construction have to be done by that June deadline, or is it that submission of payment receipts? Is that what's due by that June date?
I think the June date is we have to have it constructed and potentially fully operational.
And is there any room for extension if something, like you can't get a contractor in to do one of those things?
the construction of the campground has to be done by the 30th of June. The bathhouse, we don't have a deadline on.
Is that because it's city? But
Yes,
isn't
because
that,
it's-
isn't that our like contribution to that
Yes,
grant?
that is the
that's our funding.
$440,000
Yep.
Right.
that we set aside for our contribution is directly attributable to the bathhouse.
Okay, but it's not, there's no deadline on that then?
Nope, we talked to Renee from the board.
Yeah,
and she
she's the
said
kind of
there's-
the grant
it's a grant,
administrator of the
yep.
board.
Sure.
We've spoken to her a number of times.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
So,
Good
But
to
we,
know.
but we can put a deadline on you to get it done, right?
yep,
I mean,
exactly.
we'd like to
We're
have it done
not-
by that June date, but,
Exactly.
yeah.
That's the plan, so.
Okay.
But.
That's what we're shooting for.
That's
Well, I
what we're
just know,
shooting
like,
for.
weather's always, an issue, and then just the amount of contractors having a lot of work already.
And that's why
so.
I'm trying to do it now. It's just, yeah, the concrete is a little bit of a hurdle, but I'll get there, so.
Okay.
Thank
I
you.
hate to be
Thank
a
you.
pessimist, but heaven forbid we don't get it done, then we're out of the money that we've stuck into it.
Well, that's the deadline they've imposed. You know, you don't know for sure, but this Renee, who we've spoken with, has been very flexible and
Okay.
has said, you've done what you need to do. She hasn't consented to an extension, but she's aware
Okay.
of construction timelines up here. That's what I can say.
Okay.
All right, moving on, Ashley, please.
Item 8.04 is a resolution regarding the Intermediary Relending Program, IRP, recommendation of loan approvals for the request of CRK Coffee LLC, doing business as Scooters Coffee.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved, Your Honor.
Thank you, Tim.
I'll
Is there a
second it.
Second by Clayton. Discussion. Corky, please.
Okay, if you remember at the last meeting, you approved the IRP Intermediary Relending Program criteria and guidelines. I believe that was on the 9th or
The 8th.
8th. We had a meeting on the 11th of that committee. They delved into all of the financial documents that had been provided. This Scooters provided us more than the information we thought of, and they did a very nice job on that. There was discussion there about approving it, and it was, I believe, unanimously approved, and a recommendation here, which this is, to award Scooters up to $250,000 in an IRP loan. The final terms to be negotiated, but we had some very strict guidelines about what would be negotiated, and I believe we have an agreement in principle. I met with one of the investors on the 12th and discussed what we were bringing forward in terms of amount, interest rate, personal guarantees, mortgages. Seemed to be satisfied. I just said it's got to go to council, and then we'll finish it up, and we'll involve the city attorney and myself in getting them the appropriate documents to sign, and he seemed very amenable to that.
Thank you. Further discussion? Hearing none, can I roll call, please?
Fisher.
Aye.
Briggs.
Aye.
Cavalier.
Aye.
Kressel.
Aye.
Klatt.
Aye.
Menard.
Aye.
Pima.
Aye.
Jurdy.
Aye.
Just to remind everybody, and for the people listening, this would be in the north half of the present Opticare building, the north half of the former Arby's and Hardee's building. It will be a drive-through. They will have a few pastries, but it will not be a go in and sit down type of place.
Similar to the Thief River model, in case anybody's seen that.
Grand Forks and Thief River each have one, as does Park Rapids.
But the model of Thief River is
Yes.
not a sit-down inside.
Exactly.
Okay, motion carries.
Item 8.05 is a discussion regarding the support for the Minnesota Rail Service Improvement MRSI program.
I think we've already had that
Yeah, we had
discussion.
discussion.
I've got my marching orders, so we'll take care of that.
Consensus was to move forward, so we'll move on. Thank you.
Item 8.06 is a discussion regarding updating the current alcohol ordinance for the city of Crookston.
In your packets,
Go ahead, discussion.
this is a discussion. In your packets, you received a proposed amendment to our presently existing ordinances, as well as the Minnesota State statute. I've asked our city attorney, Tanner Holton, to be here, but essentially what it is we have two options. One, we can go through the process of amending our present ordinances, and there are some pros and cons to that. Or we could rescind our ordinances entirely, adopt a state statute, and there are many pros to doing that. And I've asked Tanner to come and lead the discussion or give you information as you deem appropriate.
All right, and just a little background of how this kind of came about. Originally, our office was tasked with just modifying the alcohol ordinance to allow for certain interested businesses to brew their own intoxicating malt beverages. Sounds like there was support for that, and our office started to do that. As we progressed through modifying our ordinances, it became clear to me and others that, you know, our existing ordinances may be a little outdated. Just one example is that.
And he's being very kind when he says a little outdated.
One example would be that under current city code, we treat wine differently than other alcohols.
Right.
For whatever reason, we're not allowed to sell on-sale wine on Sundays before noon.
Other beverages can be sold at 10 o'clock.
Some
but
beverages.
wine, for some reason.
We've treated the beverages differently.
Maybe you were getting it at church or something, who knows?
and I'm not sure on the reasoning for that, but, so Exhibit A is kind of how far we got before I decided that maybe we should look at just changing the entire chapter. And that was with consultation with Ashley. She spent a lot of time on this and at least one interested business. Both of these exhibits allow that particular interested business to do what they set out to do or what they want to do, which is just to brew their own malt beverages. The benefit to Exhibit A, I guess, is that it keeps our current structure in place. There's not a whole lot of change, and every time we would need something to be changed, you would have to come before the council for their approval. Exhibit B, the benefit to Exhibit B is, one, I think it is organized better. Two, it will automatically update consistent with Minnesota law unless the council has chosen to be more restrictive. Just as an example, under Minnesota law right now, we are not allowed to have off sale on Thanksgiving Day. If for whatever reason the legislature decided that they were going to allow off sale on Thanksgiving Day, then that would automatically be put in place for the city of Crookston, and they could go forward that way.
The city of Crookston can, at its option, be more restrictive than state statute.
And that is true. So I guess the questions I wanted to just get discussion about was if we want to keep our current ordinances in place and just, do what I was set out or told to do, which was establish this intoxicating malt beverages brewing license for certain businesses, or if we'd rather just modify the entire chapter consistent with state law and have it update consistent with state law.
I think, I personally like Exhibit B, follow state statute. Whatever updates they do, we just follow in. I think they're less restrictive than Exhibit A I think Exhibit B, is more business-friendly than Exhibit A.
No, I agree too.
I agree.
Yeah, that sounds.
Can I make a comment? Currently, right now, the University of Minnesota Crookston's ordinance is not up to date. And I apologize, but Michelle Christopherson from UMC, I was here in 2022, and the ordinance that was approved by the council is not current in the document that was listed here, so perhaps there's much more that's not up to date that you've had a chance to review. Ashley has provided me with the updated copy, but it's currently not in the packet that you all may have in front of you. I just want to make that clear. I don't disagree with what you're suggesting, just as long as the University of Minnesota Crookston can hire a licensed vendor at the CSC and continue to provide alcoholic beverages.
Wasn't there a thing in there on sports?
It is, it's 11.86,
On
and in the
exhibit-
document that you have is missing the sentence about the University of Minnesota.
And that's in
Crookston.
Exhibit B, correct, or
No,
A?
it's an A.
But wasn't there something on sports in B?
It's not in the copy you have, or at least the
Okay.
copy that was here on the table that was available to public.
No, that is the copy that was sent out. So currently, Chad, if you want to help out with our city code and how we have, yes, we have to get it codified, and we're currently working with a company to do that right now, to be able to update our code online.
And I guess I got the code online. so
Correct.
that's why it's not, I guess, the most updated
Correct,
version.
yes.
That's all I'm
Yeah.
suggesting.
So we're in the process right now of recodifying and working with a company right now to be able to do that.
Super duper.
So if I'm understanding correctly, right now you are able to sell.
Yeah, we have an approved ordinance
Yeah.
by the city.
Right.
So
We
if
did
we
that
were
last
to
year.
take Exhibit B, we would just want to make sure that that is added in there.
Please.
Okay.
Or
I just want
clarify.
to make sure that I
A
am.
point of clarification.
And we can do that one of two ways. If you were to say, take the state statute, we could then add that as a particular item to allow it if the state statute doesn't.
Okay.
And I think that there is a license.
Yeah,
I think there is too.
Exhibit B, it would actually cover that
It would,
already.
Yeah.
I think so, but we'll check to be sure, but we get the point that you're making.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Because we worked
bringing
hard on
that
that
up,
with
Michelle.
you to get that through.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I honestly think too, with Exhibit B, I would like to be like more competitive with other cities. And again, in the light of like trying to be pro-business, I think it makes better sense to be more across the board with what the state statute is. I also think that from like a cost perspective, us having something that isn't having to utilize a lot of hours. No offense, Tanner, I'm sure you're making your living just fine on us, but just us, utilizing these statutes also doesn't make it for as much work on our end in those like home rule charter situations where we have to come up from scratch.
Historically, for those of you, Tim, you and I, the background of this is we did at one time have a municipal sales of alcohol, and then politically, there were actions taken to create this sort of obtuse code because of the politics of the time. It certainly, Tanner I think he would reflect this too. It makes a lot of sense to use the state code.
Yeah.
And I would personally, I guess, prefer that as well, just because it's really easy for your ordinances to get outdated. And seeing how outdated the alcohol ordinance was just from trying to make this one modification, it's a lot nicer if it just happens automatically, unless there's a really good reason why you don't want to follow state statute. And I don't know if there is one, but that's kind of what I thought. It also allows us to do a whole lot more like culinary classes with wine for certain people if they want to do that, or other things that are enticing for, I think, the public.
And this process actually began in early December of 2020,
Yeah.
when Amy and I started going through and working on it, trying to craft some ordinance revisions, and then it has just mushroomed because they're ever changing, and the state statute will keep that in line. And if you don't agree with it, you can always make it
In the
more
future, if there's
restrictive.
ever such a thing as an ordinance, maybe instead of going through it like you did, maybe we should just look at what the state.
I would agree, Delane. I think there's a lot of policies that are fairly outdated that we could utilize state statute versus.
No, I agree, but that
recreating
wasn't
wheel.
the directive at that time.
Right.
So consensus is go with Exhibit B, state statute?
Yes.
And
Thanks
we-
for all the work you did with this, Tanner. Thank you much.
Thanks, Tanner.
So we can do a resolution, but then we'll have to do something about rescinding our code, but we can start working on that right away.
Also, just clarifying the piece that Michelle brought up too, I think is important.
No,
Yeah.
we'll
We got that, right.
read the state statute just to make sure. I think it's covered, but I'll be working with Tanner.
Are there
on
any
that.
other organizations that we might have?
There's also a process, so we'll have a public hearing. There's still going to be input.
right.
So it's not going to be a done deal, because what's going to happen is we're going to have a first reading, we're going to have public input, and then we'll have a second and final reading. So this isn't going to be the last, you'll see, and then you'll have public input, so.
It just starts us down that road.
So that sounded good. Yeah, I want to say, when I first came on here last year, I was working with Corky, and we're looking at buildings, because I had an investor coming from out of state that was looking at starting a brewery in town here. And then by the time they got in looking at our ordinances online and realized how long it was going to take, they ended up buying a fleet of Learjets. So instead of coming to Crookston. So
What you're saying is.
So what I'm saying is, if you're listening in public TV land, I'll be talking to you when this gets done.
Okay, moving on.
So then 7. Yes, so item 8.07 is a resolution calling for the public hearing regarding the property located at 115 East 4th Street, the old bus garage building.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Clayton.
Second.
Second by
Don?
Joe.
Don?
Don, thank you. Discussion, Corky.
The old bus garage has come alive again, so to speak. This is really just authorizing a notice for a public hearing on February 12th to discuss the bus garage. Is it presently, in good enough condition to continue? But it's an overall discussion and public notice about the information that our public official has, conclusions that he's arrived at, and what may or may not be done. That's also involves our city attorney at that point. Notice would be given certainly to the owner about what the condition is, what the council is thinking about doing. It's really a public hearing for you all to decide. What do you want to do? Do you want to enforce the ordinance? Do you want to give time for it to be renovated? Those kind of things, and Greg would certainly be able to present the information he has and allow then the owner to speak, and then you to make a determination about what you want to be done with that.
Can I
I have a
ask?
clarification on this. Are we talking the block building or the?
Nope.
We're talking,
The
are we
north end.
talking the
The
pole
wood-
barn
The
building
pole
or-
barn, the wood structure.
And-
Wood structure.
And so, can I also ask, wasn't the understanding with the agreement that, of purchasing it, that there would be that portion torn down initially?
And Corky and I have looked at that, so that was an agreement between the school and the current owner. There's no
City involvement in that.
city involvement, and we don't really have a right to enforce anything there.
Does anyone?
The school maybe
Well,
could.
the school does.
If it actually gives them something to want to pursue, I don't know that they want to pursue that. But Corky and I did look at that agreement because we were hoping that maybe we could get assigned
Their
those
interests.
rights
We
and
looked
then
at-
pursue it ourselves, but.
Yeah, we looked at asking them to assign their interest to us, but it just legally doesn't work that way.
But yes, you're right, there was
Yeah.
something in there that said that it was gonna be done by,
But we
The
can't
purchaser.
enforce that because we're not a party to that agreement.
Sure. And I'm assuming you've spoken with the school board and they have no interest?
I haven't spoken to the school board, but I think that it's been talked about before with them.
It has been.
I would just think as a good partner, it would be something that they would pursue.
Well,
Did the owner have an engineer look at that?
Nope.
yes, he did.
Because I recall something about it being,
There was an engineer who was issued a report and said certain things may or may not be done. Our public official, Greg, asked for that to be, get us the specs, get us what's gonna be done, what it's gonna cost, and that has not been forthcoming.
Can I also just ask, can we not just ask the school board?
To enforce that they're part of the engineering. We can ask them.
I mean, I would think that'd be first steps before we went any further to
And
anything else.
we may, I think that we've probably done that. I don't know, I haven't personally done that, but I can. I can ask someone at the school if that would be something they would be willing to do, but I haven't personally done that, but I suspect that someone has, and my guess would be Corky, that you've probably done that.
I mean, I guess my question is why you would even put that as a stipulation of the purchase if you weren't going to do something about it?
And my understanding of how this all kind of played out was, that was part of the agreement. However, then, the current owner got an engineer involved, and this engineer said, no, you don't need to tear it down, you can fix it up. And here's how you'd fix it up without giving as much details.
I mean, it wasn't very detailed, but said, yes, it could be fixed.
And I think that kind of changed the school's tone, like, oh, maybe this is a building that could be fixed up rather than torn down. And that's kind of where it sat, where we have one engineer saying it is possible to fix it up. I think the cost is certainly going to be extreme. I don't know that. I'm not an engineer or anything like that, but I think that's why the school kind of changed and decided not to enforce that. Because they originally were operating under the assumption that this building was going to need to be torn down regardless.
so is that commercial or different?
What kind of, you mean the zoning? I'm not sure what the zoning is in that area.
Well, there was another individual that also submitted a bid on the property, and he was, well, he didn't get it, so I'm assuming he was higher in his bid than the previous owner, but his intentions was take down the north section of that building. That's why his estimate was higher, or his bid.
Two things. One, also the cost of litigation to do that enforcement is significant. Secondly, I will be having a meeting with the superintendent this week on some other issues. I will raise that again. This was a different superintendent with whom I spoke previously, who just had no interest in incurring any cost. And they don't have to enforce it, but
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, really what we're trying to address is the safety issue, right?
100%.
And so I think that needs to be kept in mind as we go
Yes.
forward.
And one thing too, I would know, we can still call for the public hearing, and if something happens, let's say the school decides to change, to do something, then we can not have the public hearing. We can cancel that public hearing, but we do need to have this resolution approved in order for us to be ready on February 12th. That's just with how much notice we have to give give to the paper and to all the parties.
Sure.
Thanks, Tanner. Further discussion? Hearing none, can I have roll call, please?
Fisher.
Aye.
Briggs.
Aye.
Cavalier.
Aye.
Kressel.
Aye.
Clot.
Aye.
Menard.
Aye.
Hibma.
Aye.
Jurdy.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Item 8.08 is removed. Item 6.04, a resolution regarding approving the manufactured home park evacuation plan.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve this resolution?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Clayton. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Christie. Discussion.
Kirk, you can explain a little bit more about that?
I'm going to have Chief Hellstab explain this. It's not as complicated as it sounds. Every mobile home park must have an evacuation plan. When ownership changes, they must have an evacuation plan. This is the evacuation plan that the councils prior to you have approved all along. They're the same parks, but it needs to come before you. Hopefully, that's a brief summary.
Yeah, it's them complying by state statute is what it is. So it was actually, this was just brought to our attention with the resolution within the last month. But I had reviewed and worked with them on their procedures, and I thought everything was kind of set in November when we had talked. I gave them the approval because it was the same plan that we have for both parks that we've been currently using. They went through, they reformatted it, they brought it up to tech specs, I guess is what you could say. Submitted it back to me. I reviewed it, approved it, and sent it back. And I guess we had kind of thought that that part was done, and then we found out that we just need to have a resolution to approve it.
Sure.
So that's what this is tonight,
Okay.
is just to get it approved. But I've already approved it, I guess.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shane. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Fisher.
Aye.
Briggs.
Aye.
Cavalier.
Aye.
Kressel.
Aye.
Clot.
Aye.
Menard. Hibma.
Aye.
Jurdy.
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
Item 8.09 is removed. Item 8.06 is a resolution regarding, or authorizing a grant contract agreement for the Violent Crime Enforcement Team, VCET, for the years 2024 and 2025.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Joe. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you,
Morgan.
Morgan. Discussion.
Can only give you a brief synopsis. The chief is not here tonight, but these are funds that are available to Crookston in association with other entities for more violent crime activities. And it's for a 2-year period, as you can see. And we've had these in the past, and this is just a re-upping of these violent crime task force type grants that allow reimbursement for payment.
Further discussion.
And we've had this for 22, 23 as well?
I believe we have. I don't know that for sure, but I
Yes.
believe we have, yes.
Okay.
Further discussion. Hearing none, can I roll call, please?
Fisher.
Aye.
Briggs.
Aye.
Cavalier.
Aye.
Kressel.
Aye.
Clot.
Aye.
Menard.
Aye.
Hibma.
Aye.
Jurdy.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Reports, Corky, please.
Well, as you can see, it's pretty busy. I had a number of meetings with Tanner regarding these various items that you've seen, and it worked out really well. Talking with him, my points, his points, I think you got a good discussion of it. We had a number of meetings regarding the swimming pool. We've been open, we've been closed. There are some major issues there. The park board is considering it. We had a long hour-and-a-half meeting at the park board about what to do with the pool and how we go ahead.
Corky, can I ask why it was closed this week?
We had issues again, right, Jake?
I think Jake can, yeah, he can summarize them way better.
I just saw that they had canceled the homeschool swimming for the whole week, and I was just curious as to what happened there.
Well, this is part of my report, but, so you all know Michaela will be, she resigned. So, she will have an exit interview tomorrow morning. And myself, along with Andrea and Scott, will be running the pool for now. We do have a job description for a pool manager out, with HR. And we are currently, looking for lifeguards and some front desk staff to run our PSO system that we have there. So things were not working out well. So things changed and we are kind of in a transition period right now. So the pool was not closed today. That was a misinformed communication. We did open. So we did talk to Carol X and we got it straightened out. So
Did you get a hold of the homeschool
we got,
individuals?
yes, everything is worked out. Andrea has worked everything out with lifeguards and homeschool and got the word out. So
Also, I believe the public school came
And the
and it
public-
was not open initially, but it was reopened because we didn't have appropriate staff there when they arrived.
Okay, can I also ask, you have that pool manager position out for people to apply right now?
Yes.
And what is the pay of that? Is it similar to what it was before?
55 to 60,000, because I'm not hiring a rec supervisor, I'm hiring a pool manager to strictly run the pool.
Is that competitive?
Yes. I've talked with HR and we've done some investigating. We think it is competitive.
And is that individual then actually going to be doing things that are like revenue generating? Because I think that was the understanding of when we initially hired the
That
pool
is our,
first.
that's what we want, yes.
There was some discussion at Park Board regarding the pool. I think Jake will probably fill in a little bit.
It was a lengthy meeting and a good discussion, yes.
Yes, about the condition of the pool and further steps with the pool and recommendations from Park Board.
Correct.
Why don't you just hang there, Jake? When Corky's done with his report, you're there, you might as well go next.
Okay, we had meetings regarding the bus garage. We had Development Policy and Review Committee meeting, which was great considering the loans. I've been meeting with Tri-Valley regarding potentiality for their abandoned building. We also had, the Park Board meeting Jake will talk about. Met a number of times with Bill and Audrey regarding the rapid assessment report and implementation of the guidelines. Had meetings with Bob Magsom and the CVB. We will be having a subsequent meeting this Thursday. And at the meeting, we will have Delane and Christie present to talk about the future of the CVB. Met a couple of times with Shannon Stassen and also met with Patty from Baker Tilly, both prior to her conducting interviews with you and then also exiting. And she and I are going to recommunicate so I can get an outline for you about the timeline as she sees it progressing. So yeah, we had a fun couple of weeks.
Thank you, Corky. Okay, Jake.
My turn?
Thank you.
Okay. So just to continue, last week we did have a Park Board meeting on Tuesday. Like Corky said, it was lengthy. We did go over usages and we went from the last 5 years. So from 2019 to 2020, well, December of 2023, roughly that halfway mark is when we put those numbers together. Their recommendation is to keep the pool open, but do not make any extraordinary purchases. So if there's a pump that goes out again and it's $8,500 like we just paid for one, their suggestion is to not do it. I think as a council and myself, I think we need to have a long discussion on the pool and kind of how we want to move forward with the pool. We have a lot of issues. We got it back up and running. but who knows when it's gonna happen again. So,
And we did have citizen input. There were 4 members of the
Yep.
public who were there at the time of the meeting, stayed for the whole, gave us input about their thoughts about what should be done. And yes, quite a good discussion from park board members as well regarding what's the future of that particular pool, all the way from tear it down, fill it in, to expand and with a new pool with water slides and those kind of things. So we ran the gamut. It was a good discussion.
The interior condition, I know Jake was, and Scott were very open about anybody that wants to have a tour to see the condition, so I encourage council to get a hold of, if you want to see the condition of the interior of the pool, get a hold of Jake or Scott, and they're more than willing to give you a walkthrough through the issues of the pool. So-
Is the council gonna talk any more about this piece of it, or, I thought at one point this was gonna be brought to council and we were gonna see what the conditions of the pool were.
Well, the recommendation from one of the, our park board members was, let's see if we can keep it operable through the cold months.
the winter months.
But, you know, no extraordinary, you know, kind of on a, I guess, we budgeted X amount of dollars for a repair for the pool. And I
We're
think Jake.
2/3 of the way through
Jake
it
is
already.
blowing through quite a bit of it with repairs on it, so.
So I guess I'm curious about what the strategy is of hiring. First of all, I think we need to reevaluate the pay of that position. But if you hire somebody and then have another $8,000 piece of equipment breakdown, what happens to that individual?
We have some other jobs that we can offer throughout the city. I mean, we're always looking for recreation help. We're always looking for
At that salary?
full-time.
But not at $60,000. I think that needs to be
Okay,
reevaluated.
what would you like, what would you suggest that you want me to
I think we
investigate
need
or
to
do?
figure
I
out,
think
you're
Because
putting
I'm
temporary
up for
help,
more.
I'm more curious about doing a temporary position versus something that's permanent at that dollar amount. If we can't guarantee from one week to the next that the pool's even gonna be open.
So right now, it's gonna be myself, Andrea, and Scott managing the pool, the best that we can, with the
Which
lifeguards
is-
that we have.
which is what it's been done for about, since
Cody.
Cody left, right?
Yeah.
In a sense,
So-
yes,
so
but,
deteriorating revenue and not
with
not
the
really-
understanding is the lifeguards that we have 5 of them, 2 of them are college students, the rest are high school students. We are working on getting more. I believe I have 2 or 3 applicants that I'm gonna be looking at tomorrow. The understanding is if we're closed due to staffing or a building issue or things like that. So, we did let the public know that we're at the park board. They are members, of the pool, so they are understanding that as well. So we will keep pushing along and keep the building open and running it the best that we can, with what we have, so.
And Jake, I want to let you know, I'm not supporting you on this. I'm just wondering if it's maybe to our benefit to have a temporary position versus a permanent.
That's why I asked, if that's the direction you want me to lead, I will definitely consider that and push into that direction. I don't know if I can find someone else besides us 3 doing that or not, but I can definitely try.
Well, if they listen to this meeting, I sure don't think they would apply.
Right, and that's a conversation I can have with Corky and maybe what to pay them. I can look at my budget and maybe, if they're gonna take a lead role or maybe a supervisor role, we give them a little bit more than what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can definitely do that. I will talk with HR tomorrow and we can pull the full-time position and look at putting out maybe a seasonal or just a temporary position.
Yeah, I think we should
So-
have that discussion.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's
I just am really
totally fine.
concerned, especially if the way that they're planning on going is like if something breaks, then we close it. And I don't think that would be fair to anybody that you would hire permanently too,
Right.
you know what I
No.
mean?
Yep,
So I think
I
just
get
all the
it.
way around, it might be just, obviously, people are gonna know.
Yes.
This isn't a secret.
Yes.
So us just being a little bit more transparent with what that really
Right.
looks like might be helpful.
Okay.
So the other thing I think we need to maybe start to transition into is, I mean, how important is a pool to our community? Visiting with different people, I think it's it seems to be a high priority. I mean, I mean, it's a thing that I think when people want to move to this town, and if they look at it, and if it's being run correctly, I think it could be an asset to the community. So at some point in time, when do we start looking at a new pool, whether it be an indoor, outdoor type of facility for something for the
park board had that discussion initially at the last meeting. I mean, that's a big undertaking, and it takes some formulation about how you approach it, how you fund it, but that was certainly a key component of that discussion at that meeting.
So when do we start that process? I mean, I think it's inevitable that it's, I mean, what's the alternative?
Well, I think, first of all, we'd have to get with our financial advisors and say, do we have a bond rating? Are we gonna bond for this? Do we consider that as an alternative? How much is it gonna cost? I mean, do you wanna engage in engineering studies or contact an engineering firm?
Yes, I mean, the alternative is hope this pool gets better.
Well, it's not gonna get better.
No, I mean, so like, we need to have a serious discussion as, are we gonna be a community with a pool or not? And if we all decide that we're not, then I guess that's the end of the discussion, and we just move on.
Well, and that's why in talking with the park board and in talking with Jake, we want to bring data to you. Here's what a new pool costs. Here's what a new pool with slides costs. Here's what it costs to knock this thing down and just have an outdoor pool there or some other location. There are a bunch of variables that we're looking at. We're not prepared to bring that to you at the, right now.
And community discussion is absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and understanding that with trying to find these costs, it's gonna cost us money up front to have, information for you, whether it's a presentation or a slide or, you know what I mean? There's gonna be some kind of cost for these drawings or whatever we decide to do.
So the park board, though, from my understanding, is currently working on coming up with different options, or at least discussing putting together different options to maybe bring forward
Yes.
at some point.
Yes.
I guess my other part, before I get too far into the weeds on this, is that I thought we've been in the process of doing like our facility studies, right? And we're coming up with a business finance plan, and as part of that, we're also deciding what are those major projects that we're actually wanting to bond for. And you don't have unlimited funds, right? And so I think at the same time, we're gonna have to make a decision on, is this one of the things that would be part of that bonding, or do we have other priorities? I think a bigger piece of this too, similar to what Joe said, is like, is this something that the community is willing to fight for? Is this something that the community is willing to pay the extra percentage in tax levies every year? So I think we need to see where that lies as well before we get too much into this.
And that was part of the discussion.
I think a newer
That was
pool-
part of the discussion, and also the discussion is that in this climate, we gotta go with an indoor pool.
Yeah.
I mean, when you got an outdoor pool, you're lucky to get 3 months.
Right.
One of the park board members too wants public involvement whether we build a new pool, and it's not gonna be cheap, but whatever we bond for, we gotta see what our bonding rate will be. But
And our finance plan as to what our next 5 years look like and what we're focusing those
exactly,
finances are
but
on.
whatever, for bonding, you gotta pay it back. But
Bonding is a tax.
Right.
But the whole deal is where's the priorities? We're doing assessment of all our streets, Woods Addition's in tough shape.
And you saw in front of you tonight, if we continue the road at the industrial park, that's significant, and that's why that financial plan that will be coming forward and meetings with our financial advisors. Let's be frank here, we've got a perfect storm of a lot of stuff that has come to head because it's been deferred for so long. Realistically, we can't do all of it. Right. So it will be important to get data in front of you, options, so that you all, that's where it sits, right here, make those decisions after public discussion and input.
And I think, regarding the pool, we've had a lot of discussions down here about, how much money we want to invest in that pool. And, you know, my feeling from you guys on the council was, you know, you're kinda, well, you know, do we take a gamble and throw another $8,500 into it, or that's kinda where we've been, so, you know, we're kinda on the edge of whether to continue to
And
pump.
we've put money, like you said, in different increments.
Yeah,
If it's
you
not
know.
for fixtures or for water heater, or for, you know, different things like that, it just seems like every time we talk about it, there's something new or something.
Well, it's like, are you gonna die from a big stab wound to your heart, or are you gonna get razor cuts all over?
Yes.
There are multiple expenses that pop into that pool, and you can anticipate them, you just don't know when and how much.
Okay, anything else to add?
Yeah,
Jake?
just add one more thing. Carrie, and Carrie, her name, I forgot her name. Kayla. They brought to my attention Al from the college, the marketing professor, got a hold of me, and I went and met her students. So, how you guys did the marketing for the marketing coordinator? He wants to do that through the Park and Rec department. So I went and met his students for rough. Yep, how to market.
How to, okay,
Yep. So I went and met his students, and the ball has just got started rolling with that. So in the next probably few months now, I'll be meeting with their students, and we haven't really engaged on exactly what we want to market in Park and Rec yet, but they're going to be working on a timeline. So just a heads up on that. That'll be an interesting and fun experience, I think, working with those students and Al and things like that. So
Can I make some suggestions? Market the current facilities we have.
Yep.
I think that's a big thing. Well, I think about like with the turf being down and things like that, I think that's kind of like a unknown secret. But like I've had kids' birthday party there at like $30 an hour. I mean, like the accessibility to that and having places in town to just be able to do those types of things, like they're just not well known. And those are not secrets we need to keep.
Right.
So really
Yep.
looking at the facilities that we have and how we can market those and what are some other unique and fun ideas that we could utilize those spaces for would be really interesting to see as well.
okay. Yeah, they do. Yeah, like I said, the ball is just rolling on that. So more to come with that. And then, you know, the CSC has been very, very busy this year. I counted, you know, all the activities, like as far as like figure skating and hockey games and stuff. You know, hockey just alone, we're at roughly 150 games played out at the CSC, and we still have more youth games, and we have and we have girls sections this year. I think I brought that up. I have a meeting Wednesday with Nate on that, and then we also have some like youth tournament, like a section tournament. It's called the districts. So the CSC has been very busy. We started curling last week, and Michelle told me, I can't remember, roughly 20 people I think were on the ice, 25 people. A lot of newcomers, a lot of new people. So things have been going pretty well out there. Staffing is was kind of an issue, but we kind of worked through that, and we got the good schedule going. So. And then the snow's flying now, so my maintenance staff are pretty busy, and actually myself and Andrea are gonna get together this week and start working on our summer stuff, so.
What is the average number of games that you guys normally hold in the CSC?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, the average between like a Friday and a Sunday, I would say would be around that 6-7 games.
Sure, but you were saying it's really busy this year. I mean, is it busier than it has been in the past?
Yeah, you know, and a big help with that is, I got tournaments back to town. So we had a tournament for every age group except for our 10U girls team. And then the high school had some more home games this year than they did last year. And then UMC was very busy November, December. And they got one more series this weekend, and then they're done. So, and then of course we're hosting sections as well. So yeah, it's been kind of a busier year just because of some add-ons and stuff like that. So I feel anyway. So yeah, that's what I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Jake. Sure.
Sorry, my hip is
Yep, no problem.
I think I've said everything I have to say, except for one event. We're going to have a Community Futures event It'll be kind of it's in conjunction with the Minnesota design team. They have chosen Crookston to be their pioneer project, their pilot project. They're going to kind of use us as an experiment. There's a bunch of different departments with the University of Minnesota and the design team. They're going to be coming with architects and engineers and people, designers, to come to Crookston to listen to the community. It's kind of like the extension, I think you guys did, in 2012, you did a really good study. I forget the name of it, Shannon was involved with, Shannon Stassen. But it was kind of just imagining Crookston and getting all the trails in and what do we want for Crookston. And you haven't updated that since 2012. So we've been doing a lot of stuff in Crookston with the youth. So in light of that, they said, hey, we'd love to come up to Crookston. We're starting a new project and a new kind of a pioneering thing. So they'll be coming up, and we're going to be meeting at the library. Was it February 10th? I'm sorry, Chad, can you go back one slide? February 10th. 11 to 3 at the Crookston Library. Happy Joe's Pizza will be provided for everybody who shows up. And we want you to come and share what you love about Crookston. Tell us what you feel like we should see in Crookston. Like, we know we need to market the river, for instance, and the CSC. But we were also hearing about the pool is one of the things that has been coming up. And as we begin to gather that information from these meetings, then we can take that and use that towards like trying to ask for bonding or trying to ask for stipends from the state or from grants and that type of thing. So in light of what you're saying, I think that this event will begin to segue into what is, we would love for the Parks and Rec people to be there to tell us what they would like to hear from the community and what would the city council like to hear from the community. So the university is this would cost a lot of money, but they're actually doing this for free for the community. I'm so thankful for that. It's just amazing. So we were selected. The project is to host a community-driven action effort throughout the Minnesota Design Center, which is a teaching and research outreach center located in the U of M College of Design, which is down in St. Paul. But we're doing that in conjunction with the City of Crookston, Minnesota Design Center, Fresh Energy, Clean Energy Resort Team, Northwest Regional Sustainable Development, Grove Mechanical is going to be there, Adams Heating. We'll be just talking about everything from what do we want to do for recreation to what is available in rebates and what type of new things are out there from Grove Mechanical, Adams Heating. They'll talk about what can you do to update your house. So we're going everywhere from recreation to housing. And one of the things we are hearing on the pool thing from some of this is people are looking for a whole indoor experience more than just a pool. And I know that, Dale, you guys had a meeting some years ago, and I think Andrea was there and some others had mentioned it, but people wanted to expand, like even up by the CSC, to expand that into another, more of a center or somewhere else in town. So that's discussions that we would want to have at these meetings. And this is just the initial kickoff, and there'll be ongoing meetings after that. But I do want to invite everybody. I want everybody to get it on their calendar. And there'll be more details to follow, but please do put February 10th on there. We want to invite the council, the EDA, the Parks and Rec, the hotel people, because it's kind of just a freebie. They're going to be doing drawings. They'll be doing designs for us. They'll be doing things that we would have to pay, wherever Jake was, that said we're going to have to pay to look at a pool. I lost Jake. So some of these things we can request of them, even down to helping us with some of the grant words and stuff as we start to find grants, as we define as a community things that we want to happen, we can begin to add grants to that, and they'll help us to locate the grants and to pull things together. So it's a huge free benefit coming to Crookston, but it has to do with all the work that we've been doing along with the university. So hats off to our community and everybody that's been working with them on that.
Will this be heavily marketed?
Yes, we have a marketing budget. It's a separate, the marketing budget is actually with Regional Sustainable Development, I think is doing it. There's a different department from the U that has marketing for this. So I would love to talk to anybody who wants to help me market this. But we do want to get it out. And I wish that Shannon was here. You would tell me the name of the report. But anyway, there's been certain studies that you guys have done over the years in Crookston.
Comprehensive one, is it?
No, it wasn't a comprehensive one. I know we're updating that as well, and this can be added into that, Christy. Sure. So that will just be more meat on the bones of our comprehensive plan. But I would just want to get it on your calendar, come on out, and we'll get a lot more details as we get in there. I just got all the information today. I haven't been back to work, but just for a few hours. So this is what I threw together, and thank you, Chad, for accommodating me on it. So thank you.
Can I just ask real quick, the Minnesota Design, so is that like an urban planning?
Oh, it's huge.
Center?
Yeah.
Or just all kind of architecture?
So I worked with them when I did the Gary Pines project, and they came in with master students in landscape architect. They came in with architects. They have engineers. They have all the resources that the university has available. and they come in and they're just great people, and a lot of what they started to do COVID kind of killed some of their projects, so they're reinventing themselves, and they chose Crookston to be the pioneer project and pass this, and they'll start charging other cities to do it, but at a discount, of course, because it's our state tax dollars. But yeah, I'm really excited. So we've got this project, we've got the MPCA, you know, for the housing projects. We've got the small cities development projects. We got a lot of stuff going on. So I think people should be encouraged about Crookston. I know that there's things happening. Sometimes it can be discouraging, but I'm encouraged that the scooters is coming in. We're encouraged a lot of other things happening. So hang in there with us. We'll get this thing done.
What was the time again on the
11 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And there'll be presentations, there'll be different displays, we'll be taking a lot of questions and answers. And the big thing is the free Happy Joe's pizza, which I really love.
Is there any other incentives for people to come? I just know this is always a hard thing. I mean, I just look at like how we did the corridor study and just having the public come in, and that was such a big piece of having some ownership from our community.
So let me get more into this. This is just, I've got meetings coming up on it, and they got a little delayed because I was out, and I'm like the mouthpiece for it. So I'll get more of that, and yeah, we definitely will be happy to market and to. I'm excited. I'm excited to hear from the city of Crookston and the community, and we are also inviting, of course, our farmers and all the people that are using our facilities, because they've been very vocal to point out to me that this is their schools too, this is their streets too, this is their college too. They went to college here. They shop here, the doctors are here. So I think we need to really remember that we are a rural community and that everybody matters in that, so. Any other questions on it? I'll try to get more details, and I'll send you guys flyers and more information via email, as well as KROX and that type of thing.
Thanks, Carrie. Shane, anything tonight?
Nothing major. Been working with Greg Hefta. We've had a couple meetings with a couple businesses in town, just giving them a little bit of guidance, and what we're looking for is they've got plans that are moving forward. Met with Jordan. We've talked about the hiring. We still haven't hired anybody, so that is still out. So we're looking at that, and then helped Jake with the pool alarm, and we're still kind of working on that at this point in time, but that's really about it, not for now.
Thanks, Shane.
All right, thank you.
Audrey, anything? Okay. Chad?
IT department's just working really hard on capital equipment replacement as approved in this year's budget. Apart from that, nothing this evening, Your Honor.
Thank you. Brandon, anything tonight? Everything's golden, good to hear. Chuck, anything?
All right, good evening. Just a couple updates. We are in the final process of the FEMA buyout. They just requested that we get some updated photos with GPS mapping of where everything's located. We finalized the TA grant, and that has been submitted for the downtown corridor project coming up. I attended a meeting with Corky, the Tri-Valley building. We have another one coming up here in February. I've been meeting with department heads, discussing their projects and how Public Works can be involved. Other items, meeting with residents, hearing their issues, ways to improve different processes. And lastly, trying to keep up on the Facebook posts, keeping the public aware of what's going on. We had one go out just a little while ago. Public Work crews will be out tonight cleaning the downtown area, and then again Wednesday taking care of a couple of the parking lots.
I just want to say thank you. I think your social media posts have been really great. I think that we can't over communicate those types of pieces at times. And I think it also limits the amount of people on Facebook that make conjectures about what's actually happening versus what actually is happening. And so I would just say keep it up. It's really been helpful and effective.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. Rich, anything from Witsat?
Nothing more to make, Your Honor.
Thank you. We'll start with Tim. Anything tonight?
Well, I am now a duly sworn-in trustee of the Lake Agassiz Regional Library. And we had our first regional library meeting last Wednesday. And looks like a good group of people who are very invested in books. So we have our next meeting around the middle of March. That's it for me.
All right, thanks, Tim. Blaine?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Joe?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Don?
I just want to let you know that the chamber is working toward being a volunteer organization. You have 2 young ladies that are going to take over and manage it for a while and get it organized again. So there'll be more information coming out in the future about the chamber. And they started the bill for membership now and so forth. So hopefully they'll survive. And they've been here for a long time, and I think we need to hopefully support them and keep it going. So, any questions? Thank you. That's all I have.
Thanks, Don. Clayton?
I attended my first Go to Link meeting a week ago. Looks like a good group and very interested in assisting them. That's all I have.
Thanks. Henry?
Nothing for me.
Thank you. Christie?
I attended the CVB meeting last week. They have signed off on doing the Community Voice app, which I believe Megan Peterson had come in and had presented on that, which hopefully is kind of that one source of truth for the community as far as like events and things that are happening. And so I'm very encouraged with the possibility of like the city being a key partner in that and making sure that we have everything that for events are up to date. I know there had been some discussion about the funds that are currently available for the CVB. I believe it's around $120,000 and just how that can maybe be more effectively utilized going forward. I know that's a conversation that we're having as far as like any future lodging taxes are concerned as well. And so that will be a conversation that Delane and I, with some of the representatives in the CVB, will be having next week.
Thank you. Morgan?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. Corky, is there an EDA meeting tomorrow?
There is not.
There is not.
They've changed their meeting to monthly, the 4th Tuesday of the month from the 3rd Tuesday, initiating it next week. I've been confused.
The emails came
back
out
and forth.
today.
Excuse me?
They sent out emails today about it.
Yes.
You didn't get it?
Maybe to the board members. I didn't get an email.
We're meeting next Tuesday at 7 a.m.
Next Tuesday.
The 30th.
Perky, could that also be something similar to all the rest of our meetings are put on our calendars, just so we're aware of them?
Well, I think we have done that with all the council meetings.
Right, I'm just thinking, I think EDA would also be helpful for us as
It's
well.
on the council calendar,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
on the calendar.
And so is all the rest of our meetings.
so.
It would be
A lot of us-
helpful.
A lot of us like it on our actual.
I can ask you to do
Calendar.
it.
I think it would be
I know, so.
more proactive.
Kayla sends it out to the entire board members. I think if we just sent her the list of the city
Put it on the
council
council
members, she'd be
members.
happy to
It's just a
send it out.
calendar invite, it's not that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the calendar was made when we didn't have the technology. to
Correct.
Put it on a calendar.
It's a great
electronic
point,
calendar.
Delane.
Well, it's still information. I mean, I like to add stuff to meetings that you don't know about, calendars. So,
I'll get a hold of the EDA tomorrow and ask them to put it on all council members' calendars.
Wonderful, thank you.
If not, we'll withhold their salaries.
I guess, you want to talk about, I'm probably venting here a little bit, but I mean, you talk about putting board and committee meetings on to see what's out there for council, and I guess, and I've said it in the past, I encourage council members to, if you can do it, attend as many meetings as you can.
you come off a committee, doesn't mean you have to continue, don't have to go anymore. I encourage you to continue to go to the meetings. One example tonight was there was a lot of questions regarding the pool. If you would have been at the park board meeting, a lot of those questions would have been answered. So that's all I got.
I would also say that the public doesn't get that either. It's not not something that's on YouTube, so I think that this is also another place to have those conversations and provides that additional transparency.
It's good to have these conversations at council. I mean,
It is good to have them, but a lot of information comes from
sure,
to
I
be
may know the
informed.
answer,
So,
so I want to ask it in a public setting, so people in the public can hear it.
Yeah, I think the other piece of it too is the whole point I thought of us being representatives to these different committees was to actually then bring back an update as to what was done at that meeting, because the expectation can't be that we're at every meeting.
that's not what I'm asking.
I know, but I'm just saying that that's why
not
we
what
should be
I'm
having
asking.
these conversations here.
So, just a reminder, there's no Ways and Means meeting tonight. Thank you for everybody attend. Meeting adjourned.